Chapter 625. Let's go. Imperial, capital the five of them, landed in the square. Under Lunanshan's guidance, they stood at the front of the group. Qing Lian, who was standing beside Luo Xing, couldn't help but size up the group when they arrived in the square. When she realized that the person she was looking for wasn't there, her eyes dimmed. Qing Lian, are you looking for Zhuowen? A coquettish laugh rang out. Qing Lian tilted her head and immediately saw Luo Xing looking at her with teasing eyes. She couldn't help but blush. However, she still mustered up her courage and whispered, "Senior sister Luo Xing, didn't you say that Zhuowen isn't dead? Why didn't he gather at the square?" "I don't know. Maybe Zhuowen was delayed by something. After all, there's still some time before the teleportation formation to the Imperial capital is activated." Luo Xing shook her head. Qing Lian knew that she had been too concerned. Back then, Zhuowen hadn't been able to come out of the Blood Demon's inheritance. Qing Lian had been sad for a long time. In the end, she had decided to go into seclusion and only came out today. The inheritance that Qing Lian had obtained was called the Wind Sword Sect. This sect's inheritance was extremely suitable for her. Thus, during her seclusion, her cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. She had broken through to the mid-stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm. She was much stronger than before. LVE Tao, who was standing at the front of the group, raised his head. There was a look of anticipation on his handsome face. With the help of the Tiangang sect's inheritance, LVE Tao had successfully broken through to the ultimate six-wheel Emperor realm. He really wanted to see what level Zhuowen, who had obtained the Blood Demon's inheritance, would reach. He had to admit that Zhuowen, who had comprehended the advanced spear intent, was very, very strong. Before his breakthrough, LVE Tao knew that he wouldn't be a match for Zhuowen. However, he had broken through to the Ultimate Emperor realm now. He knew that if Zhuowen was still at the Ultimate Emperor realm, he might be stronger than Zhuowen. Furthermore, he didn't believe that Zhuowen could break through to the Ultimate Emperor realm so quickly. Time gradually passed. For hours had passed. Many people in the square began to feel frustrated. They wondered why Zhuowen was so slow. Some people even began to suspect that Zhuowen didn't dare to come. Rumble. Just as everyone was beginning to get annoyed, dark clouds suddenly gathered above the house of Marquis Qin. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Countless lightning snakes darted back and forth in the clouds, each as thick as a bucket. Tribulation clouds? Could it be that someone is undergoing a heavenly tribulation to break through? On the square, everyone raised their heads to look at the sky. Looking at the gathering dark clouds, astonishment appeared on their faces. These dark clouds with lightning flashing and thunder rumbling were clearly the tribulation clouds of the world's calamity. At this moment, everyone thought of one person, and that was Zhuowen, who had yet to appear. Could it be that this calamity is related to Zhuowen? LVE Tao's pupils constricted as he muttered to himself in a solemn voice. Rumble. The tribulation clouds finally gathered together. Immediately, countless lightning bolts descended from the tribulation clouds at the same time. Immediately, the countless lightning bolts merged and turned into 1,000 feet large lightning dragon. A dragon roar resounded across the sky with a monstrous might. What terrifying lightning! This is probably the 6th cycle of heavenly tribulation, right? As soon as the lightning dragon was formed, the faces of the geniuses in the square turned pale. Some of the weaker ones even felt their bodies go soft. The lightning dragon that was formed was too terrifying. It gave them a feeling that they couldn't resist it. Whoosh! As soon as the lightning dragon appeared, an unruly figure suddenly shot into the sky from a pavilion. This person held a bone spear in his hand and carried a green coffin on his back. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and he looked very dashing. Zhuowen. It really is Zhuowen. This kid actually reached the 6th cycle of the Ultimate Emperor realm so quickly. Looking at the unruly figure, LVE Tao's pupils constricted slightly. A trace of bitterness appeared on his handsome face. This Zhuowen was really a monster. When the Vitality Tower had just started, he hadn't taken this kid seriously. It wasn't until his performance on the third level of the Vitality Tower at Zhongling Mountain that LV Yitao started to pay attention to this kid. Although LV Yitao had lost to Zhuowen on Zhongling Mountain, in terms of strength, LV Yitao was undoubtedly stronger than Zhuowen. In fact, he was much stronger. However, in just half a year, Zhuowen's cultivation had actually caught up with his. In addition, this kid had comprehended the terrifying spear intent. He was basically invincible among those of the same level. Once Zhuowen reached the sixth cycle of the Ultimate Emperor Realm, LV Yitao wouldn't be a match for Zhuowen at all. I accept my defeat wholeheartedly. I really don't know if Zhuowen will be able to shine in the Battle of the Nine Counties with his strength and potential. He might even be able to enter the top 10 of the Green Emperor list. LV Yitao wasn't too conflicted. After he had lost to Zhuowen on Zhongling Mountain, he knew that Zhuowen's talent and potential were much stronger than his. It was only a matter of time before he was surpassed by Zhuowen. However, he didn't expect that time would come so quickly. Zhuowen faced the lightning head-on, which immediately angered the terrifying lightning dragon. With a roar, the lightning dragon suddenly swung its tail and instantly swept towards Zhuowen. Countless lightning flashed through the void, almost causing the space to collapse. Zhuowen wasn't afraid. He suddenly swung his bone spear, and a terrifying spear intent burst out, turning into blue water droplets. These blue water droplets suddenly condensed and immediately turned into a blue spear shadow that was hundreds of feet long. Whoosh! Like an arrow that had left a bow, the spear shadow penetrated through the air and instantly smashed onto the lightning dragon. Immediately, a shocking scene appeared. The frighteningly powerful lightning dragon was actually directly shattered into countless lightning glows under this frightening spear shadow. So strong, the tribulation lightning was actually broken just like that. This one is a bit too terrifying. Looking at the lightning dragon that couldn't withstand a single blow from the spear shadow, everyone in the square was stunned. They had personally experienced the terror of a lightning dragon. Since it couldn't withstand a single blow from Zhuowen, it could only mean that Zhuowen was too strong. The bitterness at the corner of LV Yitao's mouth became even more intense. Zhuowen was indeed terrifying. He knew that if he faced the lightning dragon, although he could defeat it, it wouldn't be as easy as Zhuowen. Boom! Boom! The tribulation clouds once again sent down bolts of lightning, transforming into terrifying lightning dragons in the void. These lightning dragons were even more terrifying than the lightning dragons from before, but Zhuowen was not afraid. The bone spear in his hand shook, transforming into a sky full of spear shadows. A terrifying spear intent erupted, and all of these lightning dragons were destroyed and scattered. The lightning dragons were destroyed, and the tribulation clouds also slowly dispersed. The aura within Zhuowen's body also increased by leaps and bounds. His aura was even more vigorous than LV Yitao's. Zhuowen had successfully advanced to the ultimate six-wheel Emperor Realm. Whoosh! With a step, Zhuowen landed in front of the square like a bolt of lightning. He cupped his hands in apology to LV Hantian and LV Nantian. Brother LV Nantian, Brother Hantian, I was delayed by my breakthrough. I'm really sorry. It's fine. Zhuowen, the stronger you are, the more useful you are to our Muqing County. You will definitely be able to shine in the War of the Nine Counties. LV Nanshan's eyes flashed as he laughed loudly. After comprehending spear intent and advancing to the ultimate six-wheel Emperor Realm, Zhuowen's strength was probably comparable to a peak ultimate six-wheel Emperor Realm existence. He might even be able to fight an ultimate seven-wheel Emperor Realm existence. It could be said that Zhuowen had undoubtedly become the #1 expert of the younger generation in Muqing County. After all, the War of the Nine Counties was related to the honor of Muqing County. As a result, the stronger Zhuowen was, the more beneficial it would be to their Muqing County. LV Hantian, who had been posing as he leaned against a stone pillar, finally stopped. He nodded at Zhuowen in satisfaction as a gratified smile appeared on his face. Return to the group. Brother, and I won't be able to use the teleportation formation soon. LV, Nantian smiled faintly. Zhuan nodded with that. Afterwards, he arrived at the front of the group where LV Yitao, Luo Xing, and the others were. LV Yitao nodded at Zhuan as a form of greeting. LV Yitao had always been a carefree person. Although he was rather impressed by Zhuan, it was impossible for him to show all his emotions on his face. Zhuan, congratulations on your breakthrough. Qin Batian and Ling Wushuang clasped their hands at Zhuan with a warm expression on their faces. The two of them knew that since Zhuan had advanced to the ultimate six-wheel emperor stage, his cultivation level was on par with LV Tao's. In addition, Zhuan had already comprehended spear essence, so his strength was definitely above LV Tao's. It could be said that Zhuan was definitely the main force in this War of the Nine Counties. It shouldn't be a problem for him to enter the top 15 on the Green Emperor list. Zhuan, you are indeed not an ordinary person. Even the blood demon inheritance couldn't trap you. Moreover, the moment you came out, the 100 Rivers Marquis residence was destroyed because of you. I really don't know if you're a lucky star or a jinx. Luo Xing, who was originally cold and indifferent, suddenly smiled sweetly like 100 flowers blooming. Many of the surrounding cultivators were stunned for a moment because of Luo Xing's smile. Some of them even revealed an intoxicated look in their eyes. Luo Xing's unusual attitude towards Zhuan immediately caused many people to be astonished. There were even some who revealed a trace of jealousy in their eyes. Luo Xing was the #1 beauty in the commandery. Her beauty was unparalleled and her temperament was unique. She was the dream goddess of many young talents. Moreover, she usually spoke bluntly to others. Now that Luo Xing was smiling sweetly at Zhuan, it naturally caused many cultivators to be jealous. Zhuan was also slightly surprised. Luo Xing's attitude towards him was basically lukewarm. Today's attitude made him feel a little strange, but he didn't think too much about it. Zhuan, it's great that you came out really great. Qin Lian's beautiful eyes stared straight at Zhuan. There was a joyful smile on her face and a trace of tears in her eyes. Yes, I came out. Zhuan smiled. Zhuan heard from Red Lotus that Clear Lotus was greatly hurt because of his matter. Regarding this, Zhuan also felt rather guilty. All right, everyone get ready. The teleportation array is about to be activated. Suddenly, Lu Nantian and Lu Hantian slowly floated in the air. Their faces were filled with solemnity. Soon after, the two of them formed hand seals at the same time. Waves of terrifying power burst out from their bodies. A dazzling light that was as bright as day suddenly burst out from their hands. Then, a complicated array that was hundreds of meters in size rose from the bottom of the square. The array immediately enveloped everyone. We're finally going to the imperial capital. At the front of the group, Zhuan felt the teleportation power around him. His eyes were filled with anticipation. He wanted to see just how prosperous the imperial capital, the core and most prosperous city of the Qing Xian Empire, would be. Whoosh. Chapter 626. Grand Lily, there was only a month to the Battle of the Nine Counties. Under the leadership of Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian, the geniuses of Muqin Marquis disappeared from the teleportation formation. The other 7 lords of the Qing Xian Empire also brought their geniuses and headed to the imperial capital. In the northwest of the imperial capital county, there was an extremely vast plain. In the center of the plain, magnificent buildings appeared one after another, occupying nearly a third of the entire plain. Its scale was even more magnificent than the Muqin County. The land on the plain was where the Grand Family was located. In the middle of the Grand Family's land, there was a huge open space. On the open space, there were groups of disciples with powerful auras. Among them, Grand Daffodil, Qin Mu, and Mu Lin were standing at the front of the group. Close to 100 geniuses from the Grand Family raised their heads and stared at the sky with burning eyes. They could see a majestic figure quietly floating in midair. A terrifying aura was emitting from his body, causing the space around him to distort. This person was the head of the Grand Family, Grand Hao Hai. A month ago, due to Lu Hantian, he did not get any benefits from the Zhou family. Instead, he brought Grand Daffodil and the other three back to the Grand family. However, Grand Howhai did not publicize the matter between the Grand family and the Joie family. It was not something to be proud of. If it were to be publicized, it would damage the reputation of the Grand family. Moreover, in Grand Howhai's opinion, Joan would definitely lose this bet. Once the Battle of the Nine Counties was over and the rankings on the Azure Emperor rankings were completely determined, Joan would definitely obediently hand over the marriage contract. He's just a piece of trash with a useless armor soul. What's the use of Joan's talent? When his strength reaches the fourth Reverend realm, this piece of trash will be left far behind by he. He might not even be comparable to ordinary geniuses. Grand Howhai sneered in his heart. Grand Howhai didn't expect that Joie Xiaoyin's son, Zhuo, who was so talented and had even awakened the dragon soul, didn't inherit the dragon soul. Instead, he only had a useless armor soul. This made Grand Howhai gloat. Whoosh! A beautiful figure floated from the depths of the grand residence. Just like a fluttering butterfly, she gently floated over in the air. Her every action instantly attracted the attention of many people below. Many people even revealed an infatuated expression when they looked at this beautiful figure. Miss Baiha has finally come out. Miss Baiha is a peerless beauty. I wonder which young talent will be able to win Miss Baiha's heart. Very difficult. In my opinion, only the top few on the Azure Emperor leaderboard are qualified to be with Miss Baiha. The others simply don't have such qualifications. That's true. Miss Baiha is so beautiful that even the fishes and geese alight. She is devastatingly beautiful. Moreover, she is one of the top 10 geniuses on the Green Emperor leaderboard. There are only a few people who are worthy of Miss Baiha. When this beautiful figure floated in the air, the geniuses in the square were in an uproar, and their eyes were filled with excitement. Grand Lily was the pride of the Grand family, and she was the goddess in everyone's heart. When Grand Lily appeared, it naturally caused many people to go crazy. Whoosh! The beautiful figure floated over and instantly came to Grand Howhai's side, revealing her fair and beautiful face. This woman was around the age of 20 and wore a light purple dress. Her features were exquisite. Her eyes were like pools of clear water. Her appearance was gorgeous, and her skin was like jade, like a wisp of clear and translucent snow. Moreover, every single frown and smile of this woman actually carried a wisp of a confident, heroic spirit, and this heroic spirit displayed a different kind of charm on her. Baiha, looking at this beautiful lady, Grand Howhai revealed a smile on his face. Grand Lily's talent was even more terrifying than his in the past. He knew that if Grand Lily was given enough time, it would not be a problem for her to surpass him. He also believed that Grand Lily would be able to lead the Grand family to an even more glorious height. Father, is everyone here? Grand Lily smiled, and her voice, which was like an aureole, slowly rang out. Yes, now that you are here, everyone is here. Grand Howhai nodded his head and smiled. Below, Grand Daffodil stood at the front of the group, while Qin Mu and Mu Lin followed behind her. The gazes of the three converged on Grand Lily in the sky, and their gazes revealed a trace of fanaticism and worship. Grand Lily was the pride of the Grand family. Among the younger generation of the Grand family, there was no one who did not worship Grand Lily. Moreover, this kind of worship had basically reached the level of fanaticism. Sister Baiha's aura has become much stronger. Looks like Sister Baiha has gained a lot from this closed-door training. Grand Daffodil looked at the graceful figure, and her beautiful eyes were filled with fanaticism as she spoke. That's right. Miss Baiha's talent can be considered as one of the best in the imperial capital. Even His Highness Emperor Qing had praised her before. Mu Lin waved his folding fan and said cautiously, Miss Baiha is a proud daughter of the heavens. That Zhuan really thinks that he is extraordinary and actually threatened to divorce Miss Baiha. In my opinion, this person is simply an arrogant person who does not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Qin Mu, who is dressed in black, coldly said, that Zhuan's talent is actually not bad. It's a pity that he is a trash who possesses a trash armor spirit. How can such a trash be compared to Sister Baiha? After the Azure Emperor leaderboard is confirmed, This person will know how high the heavens are and how deep the earth is. When Joan was mentioned, Grand Daffodil's beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Back then at the Joie family, Joan had caused her to lose face. Grand Daffodil had long hated Joan to the core. However, it was a pity that Joan had the support of Lu Hantian. Even Grand Daffodil could not do anything to him. However, Grand Daffodil knew that the difference between Joan and Grand Lily was like heaven and earth. In her opinion, the bet that Joan had proposed back then was a joke. Joan was bound to lose without a doubt. "Father, I just came out of seclusion today. However, I heard that Daffodil brought people to the Joie family. Is the engagement back?" Grand Lily suddenly asked Grand Daffodil softly. When Grand Daffodil heard this, the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of helplessness as he said, "The engagement was not back." "Not back." Grand Lily frowned slightly and continued, "That Joie family is merely a small family in a low-grade city. That Joan is said to be a trash. Why was the engagement not back?" "It's a long story." Grand Daffodil sighed slightly and told Grand Lily everything that happened to the Joie family that day without hiding anything. The more Grand Lily listened, the more shocked she became. In the end, her eyebrows knitted together as she said that Joan's cultivation has actually reached the pinnacle of the five-wheel emperor realm. Furthermore, he has Lu Hantian, a heavenly venerate expert, standing behind him. Furthermore, he has even comprehended spear intent. That Joan's talent is indeed not weak. However, it's a pity that this child was born with a trash armor soul. So what if this child's talent in martial arts is high? When his strength reaches the four-wheel emperor realm, he will understand how useless a trash armor soul is. This child's martial arts path will end here. At this point, the corners of Grand Lily's mouth revealed a trace of a mocking smile. His talent in martial arts was so high, but the broken jade cauldron armor soul was actually useless. It had to be said that this was a great irony. So it's a trash armor soul. If this child had a dragon soul, perhaps he would have the strength to fight with me. Since it's a trash armor soul, this child's martial arts path will end here. So what if he has comprehended spear intent? If that Joan wants to defeat me, it's simply impossible. Grand Lily nodded her head lightly. Her beautiful eyes were calm and even indifferent from the beginning. It was obvious that she did not put that Joan in her eyes. "Yes, that Joan's cultivation is weaker than yours. His armor soul is also not good. Although he has comprehended intent, you have also comprehended intent. The bet that Joan personally proposed is simply a joke. That Joan is just a small character. We don't have to pay attention to him. Lily, are you confident that you can enter the top 5 this time?" Grand Lily did not care too much about Joan. Instead, he stared at Grand Lily and asked with a slightly excited expression. 70%. Grand Lily said with a smile. "Good." Hearing this, the smile on Grand Lily's face became even wider. He knew Grand Lily's character. She would never boast. Since she said that she was 70% confident, then this time there was a great chance that she could enter the top 5. "We should also set off. I'm afraid that the Battle of the 9 Counties this time will be extremely exciting," Grand Lily said with a faint smile. "Yes, let's set off." Grand Lily laughed loudly. With a wave of his sleeve, a brilliance spilled out and enveloped everyone below. When the brilliance faded, the crowd instantly disappeared from the open space. The brilliance gradually faded. An intense light suddenly shot into Joan's eyes, causing him to squint his eyes. After adapting to the light for a while, Joan slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, Joan and the numerous geniuses of Muqing County behind him were standing on a huge open space. Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian were looking ahead with solemn expressions. Following Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian's line of sight, Joan was astonished to discover that there was a terrifying city gate that was tens of thousands of feet tall, standing in front of them. The city gate was so large that it was almost 100 times larger than the city gate of the county. It almost pierced through the clouds. On both sides of the city gate, there were 2 figures that were tens of thousands of feet tall, standing quietly on the left and right side of the city gate. A terrifying aura was emitted from the two figures, causing everything on the ground to tremble. The two figures that were tens of thousands of feet tall were not humans. Instead, they were humanoid meta-beasts that were covered in chains. They had the heads of lions and the bodies of humans. Due to the thick chains covering their bodies, the two terrifying beasts could only stand on both sides of the city gate and were unable to move at all. As expected of the imperial capital, the guards at the city gate are actually ancient griffins. These are terrifying meta-beasts that possess an ancient bloodline. At this moment, Louis Tao's calm face revealed a shocked expression as he stood beside Zhuowen. He could not help but exclaim in admiration. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a trace of shock when he heard this. He had heard of the ancient griffin before. It was a kind of terrifying origin beast that possessed an ancient bloodline. Its talent was extremely terrifying, and it was extremely powerful. Chapter 6:27. Luoyin County. At this moment, the city gates of the imperial capital were tightly shut. The ancient griffins on both sides of the city gates stared coldly at Lu Hantian and the other geniuses from Muqin County. Feeling the chilling gaze of the ancient griffins, most of the geniuses standing behind Zhuowen lowered their heads subconsciously, not daring to look at the two ancient griffins. Even Qin Batian and Ling Wushuang couldn't hold on for long and lowered their heads as well. Apart from Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian, only Lve Tao, Zhuowen, Luo Xing, and Qing Lian didn't lower their heads. These ancient griffins are indeed worthy of having an ancient bloodline. Just their gaze alone has the ability to intimidate one's mind. Zhuowen was secretly shocked by the terror of the ancient griffins when he felt the people behind him lowering their heads. "Father, why aren't the gates of the imperial capital open?" Lve Tao furrowed his brows and asked. The imperial capital is an important place in the Qing Xian Empire. It is heavily guarded and is not a place where anyone can enter. Furthermore, this is related to the Battle of the Nine Counties, and there will definitely be more people entering. The imperial capital will naturally be heavily guarded. Lu Nantian explained with a smile. After Lu Nantian said this, Zhuowen and the others nodded their heads. After all, the Battle of the Nine Counties was a grand event of the Qing Xian Empire, and such a grand event would definitely attract countless cultivators. It was inevitable that there would be crooks mixed in with the honest folk. Therefore, it was reasonable for the imperial capital to be heavily guarded. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, a group of figures broke through the air and arrived at the open space outside the city gate in an instant. The number of people in this group was similar to Zhuowen's group. There were close to 100 people, and they were all quite young. In front of this group of people stood an old man in a white robe. This elder's eyes were as bright as the starry sky. When he opened and closed his eyes, there would always be a burst of light that made it difficult for others to look directly at him. Furthermore, the aura that was faintly emitted from his body was like a 10,000 zhang tall mountain. This elder wasn't simple. "Oh, so it's Brother Nantian. How have you been? I haven't seen you for many years, and your strength has improved a lot. You are actually catching up to this old man." After the group of people stabilized themselves, the elder instantly saw Lu Nantian and laughed. He immediately walked over to Lu Nantian and patted Lu Nantian's shoulder, as they were very familiar with each other. "So it's Brother Chiu. I didn't expect you to arrive so early. Looks like you've made ample preparations." Lve Nantian also revealed a slight smile as he replied. "This person is Chiu Chang Sheng, the county lord of Luoyin County, which is adjacent to Qin County. He is slightly stronger than Marquis Lu and is at the mid-stage Mystique Venerable Realm. His nickname is Mystique Venerable Luoyin." Luo Xing explained to Zhuowen in a low voice, as if he saw the confusion on Zhuowen's face. "The county lord of Luoyin County." Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded his head. Qin Xian Empire had 9 counties, and Zhuowen had naturally heard of them. This Luoyin County was to the left of Muqin County, and the borders of the two counties were close to each other. In the last war of the 9 counties, because Lu Hantian was absent, Muqin County was ranked second to last among the 9 counties, and Luoyin County was ranked first from the bottom. Perhaps because their rankings were close, the relationship between Lu Yinxian venerate Qiu Changsheng and Mu Qinxian venerate Lu Nantian was quite good. This was why Qiu Changsheng was so enthusiastic when he saw Lu Nantian. Brother Nantian, don't make fun of me. In the last Great War of the Nine Counties, it's not like you don't know that our Lu Yin County was ranked last. So how could we be fully prepared? Speaking up to here, Qiu Changsheng's gaze suddenly fell on the shabbily dressed Lu Hantian beside Lu Nantian, and he asked doubtfully, Brother Nantian, who is this? Qiu Changsheng knew that someone who could stand side by side with a powerhouse like Lu Nantian was definitely not a nobody. So he asked this question. This is my big brother, Lu Hantian. My big brother came out from the Blood Demon inheritance, so I'm sure you've heard about him. Lu Nantian smiled and introduced him to Qiu Changsheng quite enthusiastically. Lu Hantian really came out from the Blood Demon inheritance? When I first heard this news, I wasn't sure, but now it seems that this news is true. Qiu Changsheng was stunned at first, but soon a respectful look appeared on his face. He cupped his hands towards Lu Hantian and said, Changsheng has always admired Brother Hantian. Now that I've met you in person, it is indeed true that hearing about you is not as good as meeting you in person. Hearing Qiu Changsheng's flattering words, Lu Hantian chuckled and pretended to be a lonely master. He pretended to be profound and said, You are too polite. Although I am handsome and elegant, and everyone loves me and flowers bloom when they see me, I usually keep a low profile. Even if I keep a low profile, I was still recognized by you. It seems that one can't be too famous. Lu Hantian, this cheap bastard, bragging to the heavens. As soon as these words came out, Qiu Changsheng was stunned and a strange feeling rose in his heart. This Lu Hantian in front of him seemed to be a little crazy. However, he naturally wouldn't say this out loud. He just smiled awkwardly and chatted with Lu Nantian for a while before returning to the Lu Yin County team and silently waiting for the city gate to open. Zhuo narrowed his eyes. He found that the auras of the nearly 100 geniuses in the Lu Yin County team were clearly weaker than those of the Mu Qin County team. Standing at the front of the Lu Yin County team was a young man about the same age as Lu Yitao. This young man had slender limbs and delicate features. He wore a white robe and had a calm and gentle demeanor. At first glance, he looked like a scholar, but Zhuo found that this young man's aura was much stronger than the others in the team. Moreover, the other geniuses in the Lu Yin County team looked at this young man with reverence in their eyes. Lu Yin County's #1 genius, Qiu Shaoyan. This person is proficient in palm techniques and has cultivated the transcendent emperor-grade armor skill, Falling Sun Palm. He is very strong and is ranked 32nd on the Azure Emperor list. He is slightly weaker than me, Luo Xing whispered. Zhuo nodded slightly. The strength of the Lu Yin County was indeed much weaker than the Mu Qin County. The #1 genius of the Lu Yin County, Qiu Shaoyan, was even weaker than Luo Xing. It was no wonder that the Lu Yin County ranked last in the previous battle of the 9 counties. Hong Long Long, Lu Nantian, and the others didn't have to wait for long. On both sides of the 10,000-foot-tall city gate, 2 huge, ancient griffins roared as if they had received an order. They grabbed the chains on their bodies and began to slowly pull them. The sound of gears turning constantly echoed. Under the pull of the ancient griffins, the 10,000-foot-tall city gate slowly opened from the center to the 2 sides. Da-da-da. The sound of horse hooves suddenly came from within the city gate. Soon after, Zhuo saw a group of armored cultivators riding large horses covered in scales. They rushed out of the city like lightning and arrived in front of the 2 teams in an instant. Even their mounts are draconic horses with ancient bloodlines. This imperial capital is indeed extraordinary. Zhuo Wen's pupils constricted as he muttered to himself when he saw the large horse covered in scales that the group was sitting on. Greetings, Lord Imperial Guard Commander. After this group of people arrived, Lu Nantian and Qiu Changsheng both bowed respectfully. This group was the Imperial Guard Army of the Imperial Capital. They were responsible for the safety of the entire Imperial Capital. The members of this army were all ultimate Emperor realm experts and above. At the very front of the Imperial Guard army was a burly man who was nearly 2 meters tall and had bulging muscles. This person was the commander of the Imperial Guard army. His strength was unfathomable, and he was even stronger than Lu Nantian and Qiu Changsheng. He was at least at the sovereign realm. The Imperial Guard commander nodded and said in a clear voice, "Report the origins of your 2 teams. After I confirm it, I will let you in." Lu Nantian and Qiu Changsheng were quite familiar with this situation. They hurriedly took out a jade talisman and slowly handed it to the Imperial Guard commander. The Imperial Guard commander took the 2 jade talismans and took out a bronze mirror from his spirit ring. He then crushed the jade talisman in his hand, and lines of small words appeared on the surface of the bronze mirror. Muqin County and Luyan County, it seems that there is no problem with your origins. You can enter the Imperial capital. The Imperial Guard commander nodded and waved his hand. The numerous Imperial Guards behind him lined up neatly on both sides and opened up a path. Your 2 counties should be preparing for the War of the 9 Counties in a month, right? Come with me. I will take you to the resting area. The Imperial Guard commander stared indifferently at Lu Nantian and the others. He directly controlled the dragon horse under his feet and moved forward along the path on both sides. Lu Nantian and the others naturally followed closely behind. The entire geographical location of the Imperial capital was within a city. Moreover, it was a city that was hundreds of times larger than a county. Just the city gate alone was tens of thousands of feet tall, which was enough to show how magnificent and terrifying the Imperial capital was. After entering the city gate, Zhuowen and the others were presented with a grand street. The street was dozens of feet wide, and there were many stalls on both sides of the street. People were coming and going, and it was very lively. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that most of the people walking on the streets of the Imperial City had extremely powerful auras. Moreover, the vendors on both sides of the street weren't ordinary vendors either. All of them were actually martial artists with powerful auras. The vendors were actually selling armor skills, spirit medicines, and other things that martial artists needed. The Imperial capital is different from other cities. There are basically no civilians in the Imperial capital. Everyone in the Imperial capital is a warrior, and they are not weak warriors. After all, the Imperial capital is where Emperor Qing resides. There are too many people who want to enter the Imperial capital. In addition to the rules of the Imperial capital, warriors who are not strong enough are not allowed to enter, Luo Xing explained faintly. Hearing this, Zhuowen was relieved. That's right, the entire Qing Xian Empire was so vast, and there were countless cultivators, but there was only one city in the Imperial capital. Which cultivator didn't want to enter the Imperial capital or even settle down there? After all, the Imperial capital also meant hope and opportunities. There were many powerhouses in the Imperial capital. In addition, Emperor Qing was in the Imperial capital. Naturally, there were many opportunities in the Imperial capital. If an ordinary warrior encountered an opportunity, he could definitely achieve a meteoric rise. Chapter 628. Commander of the Imperial Guard. It's the commander of the Imperial Guard. Quickly make way. Don't block the commander's path. After the commander of the Imperial Guard entered the city gates, he immediately attracted the attention of many cultivators on the street. These cultivators all retreated to the sides with reverence in their eyes, making way for the commander of the Imperial Guard. On both sides of the street, many cultivators curiously looked at the many geniuses from Luyan County and Muqin County behind the commander of the Imperial Guard. They knew that these 2 teams should be from 2 of the 9 counties. They should have come to the Imperial capital to participate in the War of the 9 Counties. It seems that the Imperial Guard has quite a high prestige in the Imperial capital. Zhuowen was rather surprised when he sensed the reverence in the eyes of the cultivators around him. He could sense quite a few powerful cultivators among this group of cultivators. They should be at least ultimate 9th wheel Emperor Realm cultivators. Even such masters could consciously make way for them, and even show such reverence in their eyes. It was obvious that the Imperial Guard had a great reputation in the Imperial capital. Of course, the Imperial Guard is a powerful army personally raised by Emperor Qing. Although there aren't many of them, they are all elites. Usually, the Imperial Guard represents the will of Emperor Qing himself. How could these cultivators not respect them? LV Tao turned around and explained softly. Personally raised by Emperor Qing? That explains it. Hearing this, Zhuo nodded. He knew that if the Imperial Guard was really raised by Emperor Qing, it would be normal for them to have such a reputation in the imperial capital. Dang, dang, dang. The crisp sound of horse hooves slowly sounded on the street. The commander of the Imperial Guard rode on a tall dragon horse. Under the reverent gazes of countless cultivators, he led the two teams from Luoyang County and Muqing County into the depths of the imperial capital. The imperial capital was vast and endless. In the center of the imperial capital, there was a terrifying palace that looked like a giant beast. Just this palace alone occupied a quarter of the imperial capital. The exterior of the palace was resplendent and magnificent. Above the palace, countless auras surged and converged, faintly forming a terrifying gigantic dragon. This was the manifestation of a grand momentum, the convergence of monarch Qi. This huge and magnificent palace was the imperial capital. It was where the imperial family, the strongest power in the imperial capital, resided. In the imperial capital, the only emperor of the Qing Xian dynasty, Emperor Qing, was overseeing the imperial capital. Feeling the terrifying aura above the imperial capital, Zhuo couldn't help but turn pale. This aura was too powerful. Zhuo felt powerless to resist it. Is this the terror of an emperor realm master? Just the aura that flowed out was enough to intimidate me, Zhuo muttered with a shocked expression. The faces of the other geniuses in the team weren't any better. When they first came into contact with the emperor's aura above the imperial capital, they more or less felt a sense of awe and discomfort. However, this discomfort didn't last long. The commander of the Imperial Guard, who was walking at the front, waved his right hand and a green light sprinkled over everyone behind him. Suddenly, the discomfort disappeared. Don't stare at the dragon aura above the imperial capital. That's the emperor's aura of His Majesty Emperor Qing. Your cultivation is too low. If you're not careful, I'm afraid you'll suffer internal injuries. By then, it'll be too late to regret. The commander of the Imperial Guard said coldly. Hearing this, everyone in the team hurriedly lowered their heads and no longer dared to look at the dragon-shaped aura above the imperial capital. At the same time, they were shocked by the strength of Emperor Qing. Just the aura alone was enough to make them feel oppressed. If they were to face Emperor Qing in person, wouldn't it be even more terrifying? The commander of the Imperial Guard didn't lead the two teams into the imperial capital. Instead, he stopped at a square about a kilometer away from the imperial capital. The square was extremely large, and there were tadpole-shaped runes on the ground. These runes revealed traces of a strange aura. This is the Realm Suppression Formation. It's the only transmission point to the imperial capital. The Battle of the Nine Counties will begin in a month, so the Realm Suppression Formation won't be opened until a month later. Today, I brought you here just to let you familiarize yourself with the Realm Suppression Formation. During this 1 month, we won't restrict your movements in the imperial capital. Moreover, you'll have to find your own accommodation. 1 month later, come to the Realm Suppression Formation on time. At that time, you'll be transported into the imperial capital. Remember, the time limit is 1 month. This Battle of the Nine Counties is very important. It's personally presided over by the Qing Emperor. The commander of the Imperial Guard glanced at the people around him coldly. Finally, his eyes stopped at the front of the team from Muqing County, where the extremely sloppy Lu Hantian was. He actually felt a threatening aura from this person. He didn't notice it earlier, but now that he looked carefully, he realized that this sloppy old beggar's aura was faintly leaking out. It actually made him a little scared. At this moment, Lu Hantian picked his nose. He also noticed the gaze of the commander of the Imperial Guard. He hurriedly made a pose and revealed a lonely expression. He sighed softly and said, "People who are too handsome are like this. Even if they want to keep a low profile, they will inadvertently attract the attention and admiration of others." When Lu Hantian's words came out, the expressionless commander of the Imperial Guard's face suddenly twitched. How could this guy be so narcissistic? How strong was his heart to be able to say that he was handsome every time he opened his mouth? In Muqing County's team, many geniuses covered their faces in shame and didn't dare to look at Lu Hantian. Their expressions were as if they didn't know this guy. This Lu Hantian was too embarrassing for Muqing County. He actually dared to brag in front of the commander of the Imperial Guard. As for the people from Luyan County, they all looked at the old beggar who was still posing with a strange expression. Their expressions weren't any better. The commander of the Imperial Guard shook his head and didn't pay any more attention to Lu Hantian. Instead, he gave a few more instructions about the realm suppression formation before he patted his horse's belly and disappeared with the rest of the Imperial Guard. Nan Tian, Han Tian, my two brothers. This old master will first take these little guys to find a place to stay. Why don't you two come with me? At that time, we can take care of each other. Qiu Changsheng said with a smile. Qiu Changsheng's eyes flashed. He was very clear that their Luyan County was ranked at the bottom of the 9 great counties. However, Muqing County was different. Although Muqing County was ranked at the bottom in the last tournament, that was because Lu Hantian wasn't there. Qiu Changsheng was very clear that if Lu Hantian had also participated in the 9 counties war, Muqing County's ranking would definitely be at the top. Now that Muqing County had Lu Hantian, Qiu Changsheng knew that the rise of Muqing County should be inevitable. Therefore, he naturally wanted to get closer to them. Hearing this, Lu Nantian nodded and immediately looked at Lu Hantian. After all, Lu Hantian was the leader this time. This matter naturally had to be approved by Lu Hantian. Lu Hantian nodded and said, "Old man Xiao is very experienced. I'm afraid that he has been to the imperial capital many times. Following him is a good choice." Hearing this, Qiu Changsheng's face immediately lit up with joy. He turned his head and said to the elegant-looking Qiu Xiaoyun behind him, "Xiaoyun, you lead the team and walk together with Muqing Marquee team. We need to find a place to stay together." Hearing this, Qiu Xiaoyun nodded his head. How could he not understand Qiu Changsheng's meaning? He also knew that Muqing County was not ordinary, especially the 6 people standing at the front. The aura emitted from each of them made him somewhat fearful, especially the white-robed Lu Yitao, the cold-looking Luo Xing, and the ordinary-looking Zhuowen with the green coffin on his back. These 3 people actually gave him a faint sense of pressure. Qiu Xiaoyun naturally knew Lu Yitao and Luo Xing. These 2 were also geniuses on the Azure Emperor list. Moreover, they were ranked above him. Feeling the powerful aura of these 2 people, he knew that his ranking in this Azure Emperor list ranking battle would definitely not surpass theirs. However, the thing that caused him to be surprised was that he had never seen the strange young man carrying the green coffin on his back. Originally, he thought that the young man was a nobody. However, as he observed, he discovered that the aura faintly emitted from the young man's body was actually not weaker than LVE Tao. In fact, from a certain point of view, the young man was even fiercer than LVE Tao. This young man is not simple. Qiu Xiaoyun's eyes flashed. With a refined smile on his face, he led the team from Luyan County and merged with Muqing County's team. The relationship between the 2 counties was originally good. Although most of these geniuses did not know each other, they became more familiar with each other after chatting for a while. The number of conversations gradually increased. Qiu Xiaoyun had a refined smile on his face. He cupped his hands politely to Lu Yitao and Luo Xing and said, "Brother Lu, Miss Luo Xing, we meet again. Judging from your auras, you have improved a lot in the past few years. May I know what your cultivation is now?" Lu Yitao's face was indifferent. He cupped his hands and replied, "Brother Qiu is too polite. I was just lucky. I just happened to break through to the Ultimate Emperor realm some time ago. As for Sister Luo Xing, she's not bad either. She's reached the peak of the Ultimate Emperor realm and is not far from the Ultimate Emperor realm." Qiu Xiaoyun's face twitched. Although he had already guessed it, he was still shocked after confirming it. He shook his head and sighed. "The 2 of you are indeed geniuses. This time, Brother Lu should be able to enter the top 15 of the Azure Emperor list. Miss Luo Xing should also be able to enter the top 30. With the 2 of you, Muqing County's results will definitely improve a lot." Speaking of this, Qiu Xiaoyun's eyes revealed a trace of envy. Brother Qiu, that's not right. The two of us are not the strongest representatives of Muqin County this time. Lu Yitao shook his head and smiled bitterly. Not the two of you? Could it be that there is someone stronger? Qiu Xiaoyun's face turned solemn. Lu Yitao and Lu Oxing's cultivations were already terrifying enough. Yet, Lu Yitao said that they were not the strongest. Let me introduce them to you. He is Zhuowen. In terms of cultivation, he is the same as me. However, in terms of strength, I'm not as good as him. Zhuowen is the strongest representative of Muqin County this time. Lu Yitao pointed at Zhuowen and said indifferently. Chapter 6:29. Spring Intoxication Pavilion. Let me introduce him. He's Zhuowen. He's stronger than me. So he's the dark horse of our Muqin County this time. LV Yitao smiled and pointed at Zhuowen as he spoke to Qiu Xiaoyun. Nice to meet you, Brother Zhuo. I never thought that Brother Zhuo would be hiding his strength so well. Qiu Xiaoyun grinned. Qiu Xiaoyun grinned. Although his attitude was polite, there was no sincerity in it. In his opinion, although the aura emitted from Zhuo Wen's body was slightly threatening, it was far from being as strong as LV Yitao and Lu Oxing. As a result, he believed that LV Yitao was purposely trying to confuse him so that he could not identify the strongest representative of Muqin County. Zhuowen's senses were far sharper than ordinary people's, so he obviously saw the disapproval in Qiu Xiaoyun's eyes. However, he did not pursue the matter. Instead, he nodded and smiled at Qiu Xiaoyun as a form of greeting. Zhuowen's attitude caused Qiu Xiaoyun to frown slightly, as he felt slightly uncomfortable in his heart. However, he did not pay too much attention to it. Instead, he quietly chatted with LV Yitao about some trivial matters and did not pay much attention to Zhuowen. In Qiu Xiaoyun's opinion, the strongest representative of Muqin County was without a doubt LV Yitao, so he obviously had to establish a good relationship with him. Zhuowen also noticed Qiu Xiaoyun's little actions, but he didn't care. He just smirked and silently followed the group. Qiu Changshen was obviously very familiar with the imperial city. After passing through several streets and alleys, he arrived in front of a rather luxurious loft. Above the loft, there was a signboard, and on the signboard were 3 large words, Intoxicated Spring Pavilion. At this moment, the sky had darkened. The sun was setting in the west, and night silently descended. The Spring Intoxication Pavilion was extremely large, spanning over 100 kilometers. There were many pavilions within, and there were many lights. At this moment, there were 2 rows of gorgeously dressed young women standing at the entrance of the Spring Intoxication Pavilion. They winked at the passers-by with every frown and smile, attracting a lot of people. Looking at the overall structure of the Drunken Spring Pavilion, Zhuowen frowned slightly. From the name, this Drunken Spring Pavilion should be a place of romance. Why did Qiu Changshen bring them here? Qiu Changshan coughed dryly, as if he had sensed the many astonished gazes behind him. Everyone, please don't misunderstand. This Intoxicated Spring Pavilion is not what you think it is. The ladies inside are all courtesans who sell their skills and not their bodies. Moreover, the Drunken Spring Pavilion is also the largest inn in the imperial capital. There are many rooms inside, and there are many ways to entertain yourself. In the entire imperial capital, it can be considered an extremely famous place. Moreover, many high-ranking officials and dignitaries of the imperial city will come to the Drunken Spring Pavilion. If you're lucky, you might be able to get to know quite a few people from the imperial city. At this point, Qiu Changshen's eyes revealed a glimmer of light. The others also revealed expressions of understanding. So this was Qiu Changshen's goal. He wanted to use this place to get to know his connections in the imperial city. Although Qiu Changshen said so, many of the women in the group frowned, and a trace of displeasure appeared on their faces. Good. Brother Qiu, you really know how to pick a place. I like this place the most. Lu Hantian suddenly laughed loudly, causing many people to roll their eyes at him. Let's go in. There are at least 200 people in our group. There aren't many inns in the imperial capital that can accommodate so many people, and this Drunken Spring Pavilion is one of them. Qiu Changshan smiled and led the group into the Drunken Spring Pavilion. "Guests, please. Are you all here to stay?" After entering through the door, a middle-aged woman who still retained her charm walked over with a smile while waving a cattail leaf fan. Her rouged face was filled with enthusiasm, especially when she saw the large group of people behind Xiao Changsheng. This middle-aged woman's eyes shone. If so many people stayed, their Drunken Spring Pavilion would be able to earn a large sum of money. Therefore, this middle-aged woman became even more enthusiastic. Help us prepare a room each. Although we have quite a number of people, your Drunken Spring Pavilion isn't small either. You should be able to take out so many rooms, right?" Qiu Changsheng said with a faint smile. "No problem. Sir, you made the right choice by choosing our Drunken Spring Pavilion. In the imperial capital, there aren't many people who don't know the name of the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Men, quickly arrange rooms for this group of gentlemen." The middle-aged woman coquettishly winked at Qiu Changsheng, then waved the cattail leaf fan in her right hand. A terrifying force exploded, and the originally tightly shut rooms in the pavilion were instantly opened by this force. Then, one after another, graceful young women walked out of the rooms. This middle-aged woman isn't simple. Zhuan's eyes narrowed slightly. The aura that this middle-aged woman had unintentionally released just now was rather terrifying. It was probably comparable to Su Chang's back then. Clearly, this middle-aged woman should be an ultimate ninth wheel Emperor Realm expert. This Drunken Spring Pavilion wasn't simple. Just this madam who welcomed the guests was actually an ultimate ninth wheel Emperor Realm expert. He really didn't know how powerful the owner of this Drunken Spring Pavilion was. "Hee. All right, mother, we're coming. Yo, there are quite a few guests today, and there are quite a few handsome men among them." The young women who walked out of the rooms all had charming smiles on their faces as they constantly sized up the numerous geniuses behind Xiao Changsheng. Many of the young women's eyes were filled with lust, and their words were flirtatious. Many of the young men in the group immediately blushed, causing the women to giggle. Zhuan couldn't help but look at this group of young women, and a trace of admiration appeared in his eyes. This group of women was quite young, and their cultivation wasn't high either. Perhaps it was because their talent wasn't high that they'd entered the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Although the cultivations of these young women were low, all of them knew how to display their charm and gentleness. Their every frown and smile was just right, causing many men to be unable to help but become absent-minded. Even Lve Tao, who had an indifferent expression, revealed a trace of surprise in his eyes. "Men are all bad." Suddenly, a clear and cold voice slowly sounded out. Zhuan followed the voice and immediately saw Luo Xing's pretty face covered in frost. At this moment, her beautiful eyes were coldly staring at Zhuan with a trace of hostility. Zhuan was startled. He didn't expect Luo Xing's reaction to be so big. Even Qing Lian, who was standing beside Luo Xing, had a trace of hostility in her beautiful eyes at this moment. She similarly stared at Zhuan, causing Zhuan to be confused. On the other hand, Lve Tao and Xiaoyan instantly blushed after hearing Luo Xing's words. They turned their faces away and no longer looked at the young women in the pavilion. Zhuan shrugged his shoulders and didn't feel anything. He didn't have any improper thoughts in his heart. He clearly knew that these women who had given themselves to a place like the Drunken Spring Pavilion were all pitiful people. Besides admiration, there was also a trace of pity in his eyes. A rare trace of anger surfaced on Luo Xing's pretty face when she saw Zhuan's indifferent attitude. She coldly snorted in a low voice and was actually sulking. On the other hand, Qing Lian shook her head and didn't say anything. However, one could tell from Qing Lian's expression that she wasn't in a good mood either. "Ladies, quickly arrange rooms for these men. Remember, you must arrange for the best rooms." The middle-aged woman looked at the many stunned geniuses in the group and immediately smiled beautifully. The palm leaf fan in her hand continuously waved. The young women in the pavilion immediately laughed and ran down the pavilion. They all enthusiastically pulled the geniuses in the group and wanted to lead them to the rooms. Hey, why didn't I bring any girls? This isn't fair. This is blatant discrimination. The young women basically chose the young geniuses. As for Lu Hantian, Lu Nantian, and Qiu Changsheng, they were ignored. The three of them were old men and naturally wouldn't be welcomed by these young women. Lu Hantian wasn't happy and boasted shamelessly. With this shout, the young women in the surrounding immediately distanced themselves from him. Lu Hantian's appearance was like an old beggar. Which girl would want to get close to this guy? However, the charming middle-aged woman's beautiful eyes flickered. She could faintly feel the terrifying aura emitted from Lu Hantian's body. She immediately smiled and said, "The three of you can follow me. In any case, the rooms aren't far from here. Then I'll have to trouble you." Qiu Changsheng laughed loudly and led Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian to follow behind the middle-aged woman. The group behind them were all led by beauties and followed behind the middle-aged woman. "Young master, can you let my daughter lead you?" A young woman around 15 years old dressed in an emerald green dress came to Zhuowen's side at this moment. Her large watery eyes secretly sized up Zhuowen. Her sparkling cheeks revealed a trace of crimson, but it was more of curiosity. The young man in front of her was carrying a strange green coffin. His temperament was outstanding, and his body revealed traces of mystery. All of these attracted the young woman's gaze. Therefore, she took the initiative to choose Zhuowen to lead him to the rooms. "Yes, then I'll have to trouble you." Zhuowen revealed a trace of a gentle smile and said rather politely, "It's no trouble. Young master can just follow me. My name is Miao Lu. Young master can just call me Lua." Lu revealed a trace of a bashful smile and very naturally took Zhuowen's right hand and pulled Zhuowen deeper inside. "Is the way your drunken spring pavilion welcomes guests?" Zhuowen was somewhat speechless towards this way of welcoming guests, so he opened his mouth and asked, "Yes, this is the way my mother set up to welcome guests. Because most of the guests who stay in the Drunken Spring Pavilion are male, female welcoming guests is more attractive. Like us, our only function is to go out and welcome guests and serve them. As long as we serve them well, then we can receive rewards." Lu Er's personality was rather lively and wasn't afraid of strangers at all. After chatting with Zhuowen for a while, she got along well and even giggled from time to time. "Did you enter the Drunken Spring Pavilion willingly?" Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he suddenly asked. "Yes, we all did it willingly. Actually, the Drunken Spring Pavilion isn't a place of romance like young master thinks. The women here are all multi-talented and only sell their skills and not their bodies. It's a place of entertainment for many high officials and nobles in the imperial city. Mother said before that since ancient times, heroes have loved beauties. Being able to have the company of beauties while drinking wine and composing poetry naturally adds a great deal of elegance." Lu giggled. Chapter 630. Spirit Stones. The Drunken Spring Pavilion was divided into two areas, named Windflower and Snow Moon. The Windflower area was where the courtesans of the Drunken Spring Pavilion played the zither and sang, providing entertainment for the high officials and dignitaries. The Snow Moon area was made up of many pavilions, specifically for the guests to stay in. Mother Su took the lead and led the mighty group through the Windflower District. It had to be said that the Windflower District was indeed bustling with activity. In the center of the Windflower District stood a huge circular stage. On the stage, graceful figures danced gracefully like butterflies in the depths of the flower bushes. On the other side of the stage were rows of pavilions. There were many figures sitting in the pavilions, drinking fine wine and chatting as they admired the graceful figures of the dancers on the stage. As the two groups passed by, many geniuses looked enviously at the high officials and dignitaries enjoying themselves in the Windflower area. Zhuowen sneered inwardly. He knew that these people who only cared about enjoying themselves were basically second-generation young masters, without the slightest bit of the heart of a powerhouse. If they had the heart of a powerhouse, they wouldn't waste their time on such meaningless enjoyment. After passing through the Windflower District, Mother Su led the group to the Shuiyu District. Unlike the Windflower District, the Shuiyu District was much quieter. There were many pavilions and pavilions in the Shuiyu District. Inside the pavilions, there were many rooms. There were at least 1,000 pavilions. How spectacular! There are actually so many rooms here. Looking at the densely packed pavilions, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. Qiu Changsheng was right. There were indeed a lot of rooms in the Drunken Spring Pavilion. There were actually over 1,000 rooms, enough to accommodate 1,000 people. Mother Su, you're still so efficient. This mid-grade spirit stone should be enough to pay for our lodging, right? Qiu Changsheng smiled and threw out a palm-sized, sparkling, translucent stone with a threatening spirit qi into Mother Su's hand. Oh, Uncle Qiu is too polite. These mid-grade spirit stones are enough. Daughters, quickly bring your husbands to their rooms. You must serve them well in their daily lives. Holding the mid-grade spirit stones, Mother Su immediately smiled charmingly and hurriedly gave orders to the young girls below. Mom, don't worry. Your daughter will serve you with all her heart. When they finished talking, the young women took their geniuses to the pavilions in the Shuiyu area. They were probably going to pick a pavilion for them. Spirit stones? At this moment, Zhuowen's gaze was fixed on the spirit stone in the woman's hand. His eyes were full of light. The aura emitted by this spirit stone gave Zhuowen a very familiar feeling. This spirit stone actually contains spiritual qi. Narrowing his eyes, Zhuowen finally realized why the aura of the spirit stone was so familiar. Back when he was at the Zhongling Mountain in the Yuanqi Pagoda, he had absorbed a lot of spirit qi in the Zhongling Mountain and had broken through to the beginner level of the Great Sun Nirvana technique. Spiritual energy was a type of energy that was of a higher grade. He did not expect that the so-called spirit stones would contain this type of spiritual energy. Young master, let me take you to your room. In the future, Lu'er will help you take care of your daily life. Beside him, Lu'er was rather obedient. Since Zhuowen didn't move, she also didn't move. She just quietly stayed by Zhuowen's side. Lu'er, do you know what that spirit stone is? Zhuowen suddenly asked. When Lu'er heard this, there was a trace of doubt in her beautiful eyes. She seemed to be surprised that Zhuowen actually didn't know about spirit stones. However, she didn't care too much and said, Spirit stones are the common currency of the imperial capital. These spirit stones are divided into low-grade spirit stones, mid-grade spirit stones, high-grade spirit stones, and transcendent-grade spirit stones. Spirit stones contain spiritual qi. This spiritual qi is very beneficial to the 4 Venerable Realm experts. It is something that the 4 Venerable Realm experts must have. Perhaps in other counties, spirit stones should be more commonly seen on the 4 Venerable Realm experts. However, the imperial capital is under the jurisdiction of the Qing Emperor. It has long since unified the currency and uses spirit stones for transactions. The value of spirit stones is extremely high. It is said that a low-grade spirit stone is equivalent to 10,000 imperial essence pills. In the imperial capital, as long as you have enough spirit stones, you can basically buy anything. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded in relief. No wonder he had never heard of spirit stones before. It turned out that only the 4 Venerable Realm experts possess spirit stones in Muqing County. Only in the imperial capital did spirit stones become a unified currency. Lu'er, do you have any spirit stones on you? Thinking up to here, Zhuowen suddenly asked Lu'er. I do. However, Lu'er doesn't have a lot of spirit stones on me. I only have a total of 5 low-grade spirit stones. Lu'er has saved these spirit stones from last year until now. Lu'er was rather naive and unaffected. She actually didn't hide anything from Zhuowen. This made Zhuowen have a rather good impression of her. Since Lu'er could still maintain such a naive character, this intoxicated spring pavilion probably treated these young girls quite well. With a flip of his right hand, a golden ginseng appeared in Zhuowen's hand. He smiled and said, This is a 3rd-grade spirit medicine, the ginseng treasure fruit. Can it be exchanged for the 5 spirit stones in your hand? Zhuowen still decided to study spirit stones. If spirit stones really did contain spiritual qi, perhaps it would be quite beneficial to his great Nirvana Sunday. One had to know that his great Nirvana Sun had relied on this spiritual qi to break through to the entry level. 3rd-grade spirit medicine. Looking at the ginseng treasure fruit with a threatening medicinal aura in Zhuowen's hand, Luo's beautiful eyes widened. She hurriedly shook her head and said, "Young master, a third-grade spirit medicine is at least worth 20 low-grade spirit stones. This ginseng treasure fruit of yours has a dense medicinal aura. I'm afraid it's the best among third-grade spirit medicines. Its value is even higher. I can't take advantage of you." Hearing this, the smile at the corners of Zhuowen's mouth became even gentler. This Luo's temperament wasn't bad. She actually flatly refused to take advantage of him. Zhuowen's favorable impression of her increased quite a bit. "Don't worry. Being able to casually take out a third-grade spirit medicine means that I have quite a few spirit medicines on me. I only want to use spirit stones to study it. Just exchange with me," Zhuowen said sincerely. Luo hesitated for a moment when she heard this, then said, "All right then, young master. Consider this as Luo owing you a favor this time. If young master really needs spirit stones so much, you can totally go to the Imperial Capital's appraiser hall to exchange for spirit stones. As long as it's a treasure, the appraiser hall will accept it. Moreover, the price they offer is also very fair." "Oh, there's such a place in the Imperial Capital? That's fine. Bring me to the appraiser hall to take a look tomorrow. Take this ginseng treasure fruit." Zhuowen smiled lightly and stuffed the spirit medicine into Luo's hand. "Then thank you very much, young master. These are the spirit stones Luo saved up." Luo grinned as she received the spirit medicine, then withdrew 5 spirit stones from the universe pouch at her waist and passed them to Zhuowen. Moreover, Zhuowen also clearly felt that Luo had become much closer to him. Obviously, his gift of the spirit medicine earlier caused Luo's favorable impression of him to greatly increase. "Young master, let's go. I'll bring you to the side room." After the two of them finished exchanging spirit stones, Luo pulled Zhuowen into the Snow Moon District. After choosing an elegant side room in one of the pavilions, they were just about to enter the side room when Luo Xing, who had a cold expression, just happened to come out from the room beside Zhuowen's. The two of them glanced at each other. Then Luo Xing's beautiful eyes landed on Luo, who was pulling Zhuowen's hand. Her beautiful eyes contained traces of coldness, and with a cold snort, she actually directly brushed past Zhuowen. Sensing Luo Xing's baffling attitude, Zhuowen was somewhat at a loss. He didn't seem to have offended Luo Xing before, so why did this girl seem to be very unhappy with him? Luo, on the other hand, was exceptionally intelligent as she secretly laughed and said, "Young master, that young lady just now was very beautiful. Such a girl is rare even in the Imperial Capital. She's beautiful, but unfortunately, she's a rose with thorns." Now, her attitude is even a bit baffling. Zhuowen shook his head and said helplessly, "A woman's heart was truly like a needle at the bottom of the ocean." He completely didn't understand. Was that beautiful big sister just now jealous and angry? "I'm afraid that big sister likes you, young master." Luo's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of craftiness as she said with a smile, "Likes me?" Zhuowen shook his head and continued, "Luo, I'm afraid that you're thinking too much. Luo Xing isn't the kind of girl that easily likes men. Moreover, speaking up to here, Mu Qinchue's alluring face involuntarily surfaced in Zhuowen's mind, and the corners of his mouth revealed a faint smile. Looks like young master's heart already belongs to someone. The one that young master likes is definitely even more beautiful than that big sister just now, right?" Luo suddenly laughed delicately. Hearing this, Zhuowen's expression was slightly embarrassed, and he shook his head and said, "Now isn't the time to talk about this. Luo had better hurry up and open this room." Luo giggled and took out the key to open the room door. After that, she lit a candle within the room. Instantly, the originally pitch-black room became brightly lit. Sizing up the room's surroundings, Zhuowen nodded slightly. This room was rather spacious, and the furnishings and the surroundings were also extremely elegant and simple. A wisp of delicate fragrance drifted within, and sniffing it carefully, it immediately made one feel relaxed and happy. "Luo, you withdraw first. Come back tomorrow morning and bring me to the treasure appraising pavilion." Looking around the room, Zhuan instructed Lu'er, and Lu'er obediently left the room. After Lu'er left, Zhuan silently sat cross-legged on the bed. He first regulated the aura in his dantian before taking out 5 pieces of sparkling and translucent stones from his spirit ring. They were precisely the spirit stones that he exchanged from Lu'er. Silently gazing at the 5 spirit stones before him, Zhuan's gaze flickered, and he casually took one of the spirit stones. Instantly, a cool and refreshing energy passed through his palm and bore into his body. It was precisely that familiar spirit energy. This spirit energy passed through Zhuan's meridians and bore into the space between Zhuan's brows, and it actually faintly strengthened the mental energy within his Naiwan palace. There really is spirit energy inside. This spirit energy is even able to nourish the mental energy within my Naiwan palace. After discovering that what the spirit stone contained was indeed spirit energy, Zhuan became rather excited and started to ceaselessly absorb the spirit energy within the spirit stone. Kacha! In a short while, the spirit stone in his hand was completely exhausted, and it transformed into an ordinary stone before shattering into powder in Zhuan's hand. After the spirit stone shattered, Zhuan continued to use the next spirit stone. After roughly the time for half an incense stick to burn, all 5 spirit stones were completely absorbed by Zhuan, but Zhuan's face revealed an expression of wanting more. Chapter 631. Treasure inspecting pavilion. Early in the morning, a cool breeze brushed past. Warm sunlight penetrated through the clouds and spilled onto the ground, causing the chilly morning to become warm and gentle. Dong, dong, dong. A clear knocking sound sounded out. Zhuan slowly opened his eyes, and a trace of light flashed past his eyes as he said in a clear voice, "Come in." Creak. The door opened, and Lu'er, who wore a green dress and had a hot figure, entered the room with a basin of hot water. "Young master, wash up. Did you rest well yesterday?" Lu'er placed the basin on the table and looked at Zhuan with a grin. "Not bad." The corners of Zhuan's mouth curled up slightly. He took the towel that Lu'er handed over and casually washed up before saying, "Lu'er, bring me to the treasure inspecting pavilion today. Right now, I'm in need of spirit stones." "Hee. Young master, don't be anxious. Lu'er will first tidy up your clothes, then bring you to the treasure inspecting pavilion." Lu'er grinned as she arrived before Zhuan and very carefully tidied up his clothes for Zhuan. Zhuan was slightly stunned, and his face revealed a trace of awkwardness. He was used to being alone and was really not used to the feeling of being served by others. However, he also knew that Lu'er's job was to serve him, so he did not refuse. "Young master, you seem to be a bit nervous. Have you never been served before?" "Hee." Lu'er's eyes revealed a trace of craftiness as she giggled. Hearing this, Zhuan helplessly shook his head. This Lu'er really dared to say anything and was completely without the slightest bit scheming. However, such a lack of scheming caused Zhuan to have a rather good impression of Lu'er. After tidying up his clothes, Lu'er brought Zhuan out of the room and walked towards the treasure inspecting pavilion within the imperial capital. The treasure inspecting pavilion was not very far from the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Lu'er and Zhuan only spent half an incense stick's time to arrive before the treasure inspecting pavilion. Zhuan's eyes revealed a trace of shock as he stared at the enormous tower-like building in front of him. He had heard from Lu'er that the inspection treasure hall had a total of 4 floors. However, he did not expect it to be so majestic. The entrance to the appraiser hall was bustling with people. Most of them were cultivators with powerful auras, and there was no lack of ultimate Emperor Realm experts amongst them. Zhuan felt as if he was in a dream when he saw so many ultimate Emperor Realm experts around him. It was almost impossible to see so many ultimate Emperor Realm experts in the capital of Muqin County. Moreover, they were all strolling around in groups. Perhaps only the imperial capital of the entire Qingxian Empire would be able to achieve such a scale. At the entrance of the appraiser hall stood 2 burly men who looked like iron towers. The 2 of them stared coldly at the people entering and exiting the hall. Stop. The appraiser hall isn't a place that just anyone can enter. Little brother, do you have an invitation from the appraiser masters in the appraiser hall? When Joan arrived at the entrance, a robust man instantly stretched out his hand to stop Joan and asked indifferently, "Must I have an invitation to enter the appraiser hall?" His brows furrowed slightly. He did not expect that an invitation would be required to enter the appraiser hall. This was his first time here, so how could he possibly have an invitation? If you don't have an invitation, you will also have the qualifications to enter as long as your strength has reached the ultimate emperor realm or above. You are so young. The robust man shook his head. When he saw how young Joan was, he subconsciously felt that it was unlikely that Joan had reached the ultimate emperor realm. Therefore, he decisively stopped him. Joan was slightly startled when he heard this. No wonder only powerful ultimate emperor realm experts entered the appraiser hall. So there was such a rule. Joan shook his head. Just as he was about to reveal the aura within his body, a mocking laughter slowly rang out. I really don't know where this country boy came from. He doesn't even know the rules of the appraiser hall and dares to come here and make a fool of himself. When this voice rang out, Joan's eyes narrowed slightly. He immediately turned his head and saw two slender and elegant figures appear behind him. One of the figures was about 22 years old. She was dressed in green silk, and her hair was tied up in a bun. Her delicate skin was as flawless as snow, and there was a trace of coldness between her brows. She had an unapproachable look on her face. The other figure stood beside the ice-cold woman. She was about the same age as Joan, but her looks were much worse than the ice-cold woman's. Her appearance was rather ordinary. At this moment, the younger woman had a mocking smile on her face as she stared calmly at Joan. Joan knew that the words just now should have been said by this ordinary-looking woman. However, what surprised Joan was that these two women were wearing Arcana Master's robes. The ordinary-looking woman had 3 stars embroidered on her chest, indicating that she was a rank 3 Arcana Master. This woman's natural talent wasn't bad. She wasn't even 20 years old, yet her spiritual force was already at the 3rd grade. She could be considered a genius. What surprised Joan was that the woman with an icy expression wore a white robe that was like a flawless white lotus, and there were actually 4 stars embroidered on her chest. This woman was actually a rank 4 Arcana Master. I truly never imagined that Miss Huang Fu and Miss Jingyun would actually come to the appraiser hall. It's truly our honor. Ladies, please come in. The 2 robust men that were originally cold and indifferent had a great change in attitude. Their originally cold and indifferent expressions were completely replaced by enthusiasm, and they even revealed a trace of flattering smiles. Huang Fu, when she heard the surname Huang Fu, Lu'er, who was standing beside, Joan trembled. Joan felt Lu'er's unusual behavior, and his brows knit together slightly as his gaze landed on Lu'er. Young master, Huang Fu is the surname of a direct descendant of the imperial family. I'm afraid that Miss Huang Fu is a member of the imperial family. It's best if we try our best not to offend her, Lu'er said somewhat worriedly. The 2 women slowly walked past Joan. The woman with an icy expression didn't even look at Joan from beginning to end. Perhaps in her opinion, Joan wasn't even worthy of her attention. Ladies, please come in. The 2 robust men hurriedly and enthusiastically gestured for them to enter. Their attitudes were extremely respectful and submissive. I say, the 2 of them don't have an invitation letter, nor have they reached the pinnacle of the 5-wheel emperor realm, right? Are you going to let them in just like that? Then wouldn't the appraiser hall's rules exist in name only? Just as the 2 women were about to enter, Joan's unhurried voice rang out, causing the 2 women's movements to stiffen. Their beautiful eyes simultaneously focused on the indifferent young man who was carrying a green coffin on his back. As expected of an ignorant brat, the ordinary-looking woman crossed her arms in front of her chest and stared at Joan mockingly, as if she was waiting to watch a good show. As for the indifferent woman, she watched coldly from the sidelines. A hint of mockery also appeared in her beautiful eyes. Brat, you better watch your mouth. How can you compare to Miss Huang Fu and Miss Jingyun? Both of them are geniuses of the Imperial Capital's Arcane Guild. Also, I forgot to tell you. Arcanists can freely enter the appraiser hall. Tell me, firstly, your cultivation isn't high enough. Secondly, you don't have an invitation letter. Thirdly, you're not an arcanist. Do you think you have the qualifications to enter the appraiser hall? Let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't want to suffer, get lost as soon as possible. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. The two robust men immediately glared at Juan fiercely. In their hearts, they secretly thought that this young man really didn't know what was good for him. Must he suffer a little before he is satisfied? At this moment, Luer, who was standing beside Juan, was trembling slightly. She hugged Juan's arm tightly and hid behind him. The two robust men looked ferocious. Since Luer was still young, she naturally felt terrified. My cultivation isn't high enough. I'm not an arcanist. Which dog eye of yours saw that I don't have the qualifications to enter? Or are both of your dog eyes blind? You think I don't have the qualifications to enter without being verified? Juan straightened his back and spoke coldly. As soon as these words were spoken, the two robust men were stunned. Then, they revealed furious expressions. Instantly, a terrifying aura erupted from their bodies. Both of them were actually five-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators. Brat, if you're here to cause trouble in the appraiser hall, let me give you a piece of advice. Otherwise, the two of us really won't be polite. At that time, you'll regret it. The two robust men glared coldly at Juan with sinister gazes. Regret. Juan sneered repeatedly. He lightly patted the green coffin with his right hand. Instantly, the coffin lid opened a crack. A terrifying pressure descended at the entrance of the appraiser hall like a towering mountain. The surrounding air instantly froze. Plop! The ferocious expressions on the two robust men's faces had long been restrained. Instead, they were replaced by terrified expressions. Under this pressure, they directly knelt on the ground. They struggled with all their might, but were unable to break free. How was this possible? How can there be such a terrifying pressure? What cultivation level does this brat have? The two burly men kneeling on the ground were filled with fear and remorse. They could not imagine that Juan was able to release such a terrifying pressure. The expressions of the two women standing behind the burly man finally changed. Although the pressure was not directed at them, even the aftermath of the pressure was enough to make the two women shudder in fear. This was especially so for the ordinary-looking woman. At this moment, her delicate body was on the verge of collapsing. She actually couldn't stand steadily and was about to fall to the ground. Fortunately, the cold-looking woman acted in time and completely stabilized the woman's body. Tell me, do you think I have the qualifications to enter the appraiser hall now? Juan's foot stomped on the ground. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly as he asked indifferently. At this moment, the two robust men were barely able to support their bodies. Blood flowed out from the corners of their mouths. With great difficulty, they said, "Sir, we were blind just now. We didn't know that you were hiding your strength. If we have offended you in any way, please forgive us. Please let us go." Hearing this, Juan coldly snorted. He lightly patted his right hand, and the slit in the green coffin behind him slowly closed. The terrifying pressure also completely disappeared. Only after the pressure disappeared did the two robust men let out a sigh of relief. At this moment, they hurriedly lowered their heads and made an inviting gesture. The young man in front of them was too terrifying. Just the pressure that he released actually made them feel suffocated. At this moment, Luer, who was beside Juan, stared at Juan with her beautiful eyes. Although she knew that Juan was a genius young man who came from another region and was definitely not weak, she didn't expect him to be powerful to such an extent. She had heard that the two robust men guarding the appraiser hall were powerful ultimate five-wheel Emperor Realm cultivators. She didn't expect that they wouldn't even dare to move under Juan's pressure just now. Chapter 632. Three-colored spirit, fruit shaking his head helplessly. Juan also understood the cruelty of this world where the strong reigned supreme when he sensed the change in attitude of the two burly men. If you didn't have strength, you wouldn't be respected at all. Bringing Lu along, Juan directly brushed past the two women beside him and instantly entered the inspection treasure hall. The cold woman's willowy brows knitted slightly. Zhuowen's disregard made her feel a little uncomfortable in her heart. As for the ordinary-looking woman standing beside her, her beautiful eyes flickered, but in the end, she didn't have the courage to stop Zhuowen. The pressure that Zhuowen released earlier was extremely terrifying. She was very clear that with her strength, she was simply no match for Zhuowen. Senior Huangfu, this kid doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He even dares to look down on you. Are we going to let him off just like that? The ordinary-looking woman was still somewhat unwilling and whispered to the cold woman. The cold woman shook her head and said, "This time, we came to the inspection treasure hall for the auction on the 4th floor. There's no need to cause unnecessary trouble." Hearing this, the ordinary-looking woman could only nod her head. The status of the cold woman in front of her was much higher than hers. Moreover, the cold woman's talent was also much more outstanding than hers, so she didn't dare to disobey the orders of the cold woman. "Let's go. That kid is just a small fry. There's no need to take him to heart." The cold woman shook her head and immediately led the ordinary-looking woman into the inspection treasure hall. The inspection treasure hall was extremely large. After entering through the door, there was a passageway that was like a long snake. After walking out of the passageway, what appeared in front of Zhuowen was an extremely large hall. At this moment, the hall was bustling with people. At a glance, it was filled with people. Moreover, Zhuowen also discovered that other than cultivators, there were also many arcanists wearing long robes. Moreover, there were quite a number of them. It seems that the scale of the arcane guild in the imperial capital is quite large. Just the number of arcanists here has already surpassed the arcane guild in Broken Rock City. I wonder where Master Karaki and the others have gone. At this point, a trace of doubt appeared in Zhuowen's eyes. Before the destruction of Broken Rock City, the arcane guild in Broken Rock City had already moved out of the city, and Master Karaki had naturally left with the arcane guild. Until now, Zhuowen had not heard any news about Master Karaki. Speaking of which, Master Karaki could be considered as Zhuowen's half-master. Back then, it was Karaki who introduced Zhuowen to the field of psychic power and discovered Zhuowen's talent in psychic power. "Lua, do you know where the Spirit Stone exchange area is?" Zhuowen knew nothing about the appraiser hall and could only seek help from Lua. Lua isn't too sure either. "Young master, go ask the staff at the counter." Lua scratched her head and said somewhat embarrassedly. She was only a little servant girl in the Drunken Spring Pavilion and did not have the qualifications to enter a place like the appraiser hall. How could she be familiar with the things in the appraiser hall? Nodding, Zhuowen walked straight to a counter. There was an old man with white hair and beard leaning against the counter. He had an indifferent attitude towards the cultivators looking at the items in front of the counter. Zhuowen's arrival did not attract the old man's attention. He only casually glanced at Zhuowen before his eyes became misty, looking as if he had not yet woken up. The old man's attitude caused Zhuowen to be somewhat speechless. In the end, he could only lightly knock on the table and ask, "May I ask if I need to exchange for spirit stones? Where can I exchange spirit stones in the inspection hall?" The old man turned his head slightly and stared at Zhuowen with slight astonishment. He said indifferently, "Are the treasures on you valuable enough?" The appraiser hall has a requirement. Only treasures with a value of 50 low-grade spirit stones and above are qualified to exchange for spirit stones. Otherwise, everything is off the table. "Oh, I see. This should be enough to prove that I have the qualifications to exchange for spirit stones, right?" Nodding, Zhuowen took out a palm-sized fruit from his spirit ring. It had 3 colors that constantly alternated with each other. A fragrance similar to that of orchids, and musk slowly drifted out from the fruit. A 5th-grade elixir, the 3-colored spirit fruit? Looking at the 3-colored spirit fruit in Zhuowen's hand, the old man suddenly stood up. His originally indifferent expression had long disappeared and was replaced by a dignified expression. He did not expect that this young man in front of him would actually be able to take out a 5th-grade elixir. Moreover, it was one of the rarer 5th-grade elixirs. "Put away the 3-colored spirit fruit first, then follow me to the inner room." The old man's face was as calm as water. He stood up and led Zhuo into the inner room behind the counter. A fifth-grade elixir was very rare. He did not expect that this young man in front of him would actually possess such an elixir. How could the old man not treat it seriously? The corner of his mouth slightly curled up. Zhuo had obtained countless resources from the blood demon inheritance. Back then, even a high-grade Chinquan bag could not contain them. Although he had left most of his resources to the Zhuo family, Zhuo still had a lot of resources on him. At this moment, it was just right to put them to good use. The furnishings of the inner room were similar to a study room. A refreshing sandalwood fragrance slowly drifted in the air, making one feel relaxed and happy. The two of them casually sat opposite each other in the middle, while Lu'er stood obediently beside Zhuo. Her beautiful eyes were filled with extraordinary splendor. When Zhuo took out a fifth-grade elixir, she was also inexplicably shocked. "Little friend, can you let me take a look at the three-colored spirit fruit? I am one of the appraisers in the appraisal pavilion." At this moment, the old man's face was much more amiable and enthusiastic. Nodding his head, Zhuo passed the three-colored spirit fruit to the old man. After the old man received the fruit, he carefully held it in his palm and carefully examined it. His turbid eyes revealed a trace of satisfaction. "Little friend, the quality of your three-colored spirit fruit is excellent. I will not let you suffer a loss. How about 30 mid-grade spirit stones?" After pondering for a moment, the old man named a price. 30 mid-grade spirit stones? Hearing this, Zhuo nodded his head in satisfaction. Spirit stones were divided into 4 grades: low grade, mid-grade, high grade, and supreme grade. The exchange rate for each grade was 100. For example, a mid-grade spirit stone was equivalent to 100 low-grade spirit stones. A high-grade spirit stone was equivalent to 100 mid-grade spirit stones, and so on. It was said that supreme-grade spirit stones were extremely rare. Even if one used 100 high-grade spirit stones to exchange, no one would be willing to exchange it, unless one used rare treasures to exchange for supreme-grade spirit stones. This old man was indeed generous. According to the market price, the three-colored spirit fruit was about 30 mid-grade spirit stones. The old man did not deliberately lower the price. Instead, he was just stating the facts. "Okay." Zhuo nodded his head. The old man revealed a smile and waved his sleeve. Suddenly, 30 crystal-clear spirit stones appeared on the table in front of the two. "Here are 30 mid-grade spirit stones. Little friend, you must keep them well." The old man smiled and said. His right hand touched the spirit stones on the table. With a thought, the spirit stones immediately entered the spiritual ring, leaving only one mid-grade spirit stone lying quietly in Zhuo's palm. Feeling the spirit energy coming from the spirit stone in his palm, Zhuo's face revealed a joyful expression as he said to himself, "It is indeed a mid-grade spirit stone. The spirit energy inside is much richer than that of a low-grade spirit stone." "Little friend, do you have anything else you want to exchange for spirit stones? This old man can appraise them for you one by one. The price will definitely not let you suffer a loss." The old man grinned. He knew that since Zhuo could take out a grade 5 spirit medicine, then he probably had other good things on him. This young man before him was a big customer, so he naturally would not let him go easily. I still have some things that I don't need to exchange for spirit stones." Nodding his head, Zhuo bent his finger and tapped. Instantly, the remaining resources in the spiritual ring were all piled up on the table between the two of them. Soon, they piled up into a small mountain. Most of them were grade 3 and 4 spirit medicines, as well as some armor skills of a lower grade. There was also a small amount of earth-rank spirit treasures. Looking at the small mountain of resources on the table, the old man and Lu'er were both stunned. Their faces revealed astonishment. They did not expect that Zhuo actually had so many resources on him. The old man's eyes instantly revealed a trace of brilliance. He looked at Zhuo as if he was staring at a pie. He really did not expect that this young man before him actually had so many resources on him. With so many resources, the old man could earn quite a bit just from the commission alone. Therefore, The old man's expression was even more enthusiastic at this moment. For hours later, Zhuan and Luer walked out of the inner room under the old man's enthusiastic lead. Zhuan took out too many resources. Even the old man spent 4 hours to appraise them. Zhuan's harvest this time was not bad. After exchanging all the resources on him, he obtained a total of 50,000 mid-grade spirit stones. Due to the appraiser hall's regulations, the highest amount of spirit stones that could be exchanged could only be mid-grade spirit stones. Otherwise, Zhuan would have exchanged all the mid-grade spirit stones on him for high-grade spirit stones. Little friend, if you have anything that you need to exchange for spirit stones in the future, feel free to look for this old man. This old man will definitely give you a fair price. The old man said to Zhuan rather enthusiastically. Nodding his head, Zhuan said indifferently, "Don't worry. If I really need to exchange for spirit stones in the future, I will definitely look for you." As he spoke, Zhuan was about to leave the appraiser hall with Luer. However, just as he was about to step out of the appraiser hall's door, a burst of noise suddenly came from the depths of the hall. Let's go quickly. This time, the appraiser hall's 4th floor will be auctioning the Greater Infinity Sword Formation. You have to know that this is a Grade 5 origin formation. Although its power is greatly reduced due to the lack of a portion, its power is far more powerful than an ordinary Grade 4 origin formation. I'm afraid that many Arcana Masters will come to bid for this Greater Infinity Sword Formation this time. 2 people passed by and were discussing matters regarding the Greater Infinity Sword Formation. This caused Zhuan's eyebrows to slightly raise. He did not expect that the appraiser hall would actually auction a Grade 5 origin formation. This caused Zhuan to be rather curious. Just as Zhuan was pondering about the Greater Infinity Sword Formation, a familiar voice suddenly came from behind him. "Zhuan, you really came to the Imperial capital." "Haha, I knew you would come." Chapter 633. Greater Infinity Sword Formation. Zhuan turned around and saw an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion wearing an arcanist robe. When Zhuan saw the old man, he was startled at first, but then a hint of surprise appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Old Songmu, I didn't expect you to be in the Imperial City too." Zhuan was pleasantly surprised. This figure was Master Songmu, whom he had not seen for a long time. Qiuqiu had told him that the Arcane Guild in Broken Rock City had moved, but he did not know where. Now it seemed that they had moved to the Imperial City. Master Songmu's face was full of smiles. He came to Zhuan and said with a smile, "I knew it. With your talent, it's not a problem for you to enter the top 100 in the Vitality Tower battle. Now that you've appeared in the Imperial City, you must be preparing to participate in the upcoming Battle of the 9 Counties, right?" Master Songmu had moved to the Imperial City early, so he had not heard of Zhuan's terrifying achievements in the Vitality Tower battle. He only thought that Zhuan had entered the top 100 in the Vitality Tower battle. Zhuan smiled and nodded. He said, "Old Songmu, why did the Arcane Guild in Broken Rock City move to the Imperial City? Aren't you all doing well in Broken Rock City?" "It's a long story. The headquarters of the Arcane Guild in the Imperial City summoned all of our branches back. As for what exactly happened, I'm not very sure." Master Songmu shook his head and said with some confusion, "Old Songmu, it seems that you're doing well too. Your mental strength has broken through to the 4th level." Zhuan quickly noticed the 4 stars on Master Songmu's chest and said with a smile, "It's just a lucky breakthrough. But with my talent, I'm afraid I can only stay at the level of the 4th level small success." On the other hand, when you were in Broken Rock City, your mental strength was already at the 3rd level large success. Now that almost 2 years have passed, I'm afraid you've already become a 4th level arcanist. Master Songmu stared at Zhuan with bright eyes. He knew that with Zhuan's mental strength talent, it was only a matter of time before he became a 4th level arcanist. Now that 2 years had passed, Zhuan's mental strength was likely to reach the 4th level. Zhuan smiled faintly and said coolly, "In more or less." "Sigh, I didn't misjudge you back then." Grandmaster Karaki's face twitched. He was more than 40 years older than Zhuan, but Zhuan's spiritual energy cultivation was on par with his. This made Grandmaster Kuraki feel bitter. It seemed that he couldn't compare with a monster like Zhuowen. Otherwise, it would be too much of a blow to his confidence. Hearing the conversation between Zhuowen and Grandmaster Karaki, Luer was shocked once again. What exactly is the background of this young master beside me? Not only was his aura enough to intimidate the two ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators guarding the Appraiser Hall, but this rank 4 Arcana Master in front of him seemed to be so cordial towards this young man. Moreover, this young man seemed to be a rank 4 Arcana Master himself. Old Man Songmu, the Appraisal Hall seems rather lively today. Do you know what's going on? Zhuowen suddenly asked. Oh, are you talking about the auction for the Greater Limitless Sword Formation? That thing is indeed going to be auctioned today. Grandmaster Kuraki nodded. Earlier, I heard that the Greater Limitless Sword Formation is a rank 5 origin formation. A rank 5 origin formation is extremely precious. The Appraisal Hall is actually willing to auction it? Zhuowen was slightly puzzled. The might of a rank 5 origin formation was extremely terrifying. It was much more powerful than a rank 4 origin formation. Normally, origin formations of this rank wouldn't be auctioned because they were too rare. This was also what Zhuowen was puzzled about. Grandmaster Karaki shook his head and said, the Greater Limitless Sword Formation is indeed a rank 5 origin formation, but it's a damaged rank 5 origin formation. It's said that the Greater Limitless Sword Formation has a total of 5 small sword formations, and the 5 small sword formations are arranged in 5 different directions. However, the Greater Limitless Sword Formation that the Appraisal Hall is auctioning is missing a small sword formation. It's precisely because it's missing a small sword formation that the might of the Greater Limitless Sword Formation is greatly reduced. Although it's inferior to an ordinary rank 5 origin formation, it's still much stronger than most rank 4 origin formations. A damaged rank 5 origin formation. Hearing this, Zhuowen's gaze slightly focused, and he was slightly excited in his heart. He had never seen a rank 5 origin formation, and he would be able to experience it this time. What? Zhuowen, could it be that you're interested in the Greater Limitless Sword Formation as well? Grandmaster Kuraki grinned. I'm indeed somewhat interested. Why don't we go to the 4th floor and take a look? Zhuowen smiled. I'm also preparing to head to the 4th floor of the Appraisal Hall, but I still need to wait for a few friends. Why don't we wait for a while? Grandmaster Kuraki nodded. Since they're your friends, there's no harm in waiting. Zhuowen didn't refuse. The two of them didn't wait for too long before a group of people walked over from the other side of the hall. Grandmaster Karaki saw the group of people with a glance and hurriedly went over to greet them. When Zhuowen's gaze landed on the group of people, he was first stunned, and then he frowned slightly because he realized that he actually saw 2 familiar faces in the group. There were a total of 4 people in the group, 2 men and 2 women. Among them, the 2 women were none other than the cold-looking woman with the surname Huangfu and the ordinary-looking woman called Jingyun that Zhuowen met when he first entered the Appraisal Hall. Standing beside the 2 women was an old man and a young man. One of them was dressed in a gray robe, and there was a gentle smile on the corner of his mouth. Zhuowen also knew this person. He was the president of the Broken Rock City's Arcane Guild, Master Kuya. The other person's age was similar to the cold-looking woman's. This person's hair was tied into a crown, and he was handsome and elegant. When he opened and closed his eyes, they shone with a sharp aura. This young man was handsome and elegant, and when he smiled, he was extremely good-looking. If it was in his previous life, he would definitely be an idol-level existence. At this moment, this young man's gaze was gentle as he looked at the cold-looking woman. His face was full of tenderness, and even a fool could tell that this young man probably liked this cold-looking woman. Unfortunately, the falling flowers were affectionate, but the flowing water was heartless. The woman with the surname Huangfu completely ignored this young man and treated him as air. As for the ordinary-looking woman standing beside the woman with the surname Huangfu, her gaze was firmly fixed on the young man. Perhaps she found that the young man's gaze was completely occupied by the woman with the surname Huangfu, so she was quite jealous and sulking at the side. Karaki, you've come quite early. It seems that you've specially come to wait for us. Master Kuya looked at Master Karaki, who had come over, and immediately gave him a bear hug. Master Kuya, actually, I've also just arrived. Master Karaki smiled slightly, and, at the same time, he cupped his hands towards the three people behind Master Kuya and said, I really didn't expect that even Miss Huangfu, young Master Feng, and Miss Jingyun would also come. The woman with the surname Huangfu, the handsome young man, and Jingyun also politely returned the greeting. After all, Master Karaki was also a grade 4 arcanist. His status was not low, so they would naturally give him some face. As Master Karaki spoke, he pulled Master Kuya and the others to Zhuan and said, Master Kuya, Zhuan has also come to the Imperial capital. Oh, it's really you, Zhuan. When our arcane guild moved to the Imperial capital, we wanted to bring you along, but unfortunately, you had already entered the Vitality Tower at that time. Since you've come to the Imperial capital, it means that your results in the Vitality Tower battle are pretty good. Master Kuya rather enthusiastically patted Zhuan's shoulder, and his eyes were full of gratification. Zhuan's performance in Broken Rock City back then was extremely good, especially when he defeated the geniuses of Yang City and Anding City for their Broken Rock City Arcane Guild. He had won a lot of face for their Arcane Guild, so Master Kuya naturally had a very good impression of Zhuan. It's you? Suddenly, two voices spoke in unison behind Master Kuya. Master Kuya couldn't help but be stunned. He turned his head and said to the two people behind him, Do you know each other? The two people who spoke in unison were the women with the surname Huangfu and the name Jingyun. However, the two women's expressions were not particularly good. Obviously, they were recalling the incident at the entrance of the Inspection Treasure Pavilion. I don't know each other. Maybe these two have mistaken me for someone else. Zhuan smiled indifferently. He completely ignored the two women behind Master Kuya and continued to chat cheerfully with Master Karaki. Zhuan couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these two women who felt good about themselves. Of course, he didn't want to have anything to do with them. Zhuan's disregard immediately made Jingyun angry out of humiliation. She coldly shouted, What an arrogant brat. Are you planning to escape by ignoring us? Coward, you're still pretending to be virtuous. The woman with the surname Huangfu's expression was somewhat unsightly. When had she ever been disregarded like this? Since she was young, she had always been the moon, surrounded by the stars. Who dared to treat her with disdain? However, not only did the young man before her ignore her, he even ignored her twice. This caused a trace of anger to appear on the originally arrogant woman with the surname Huangfu's charming face. Perhaps sensing the abnormality of the woman with the surname Huangfu, the gentle-looking and dignified young man finally shifted his gaze away from her and landed on Zhuan. The gentleness in his eyes was gradually replaced by coldness. I'll give you a chance now. Come here, kneel down and apologize to Zixia. Otherwise, it's unlikely that you'll be able to leave the Inspection Treasure Pavilion alive. The young man raised his head and puffed out his chest as he looked down at Zhuan. It was as if in his eyes, Zhuan was as insignificant as an ant. Oh, you want me to go over, kneel down, and apologize? Zhuan's words paused. Shortly after, he turned his head and stared at the arrogant young man with a cold smile on his face. Isn't this young man too full of himself? Zhuan, didn't provoke him, yet he directly asked me to kneel down and apologize. Where did this young man get his confidence from? That's right. You only have one chance. Come here at once, kneel down and apologize. Zixia was frightened because of you just now, so you must bear the consequences. The young man remained arrogant as he spoke in a righteous tone. You're really out of your mind. Since you want to show off in front of Zixia, can you not act so retarded? Or do you think you're very handsome now? However, in my opinion, you're just a lunatic. If you want to show off in front of a beauty, you must first choose the right target. Once you choose the wrong one, the consequences will be severe. Exalted Spirit. Chapter 634. Auction, what did you just say? The handsome young man's face darkened. Zhuan was too presumptuous. He dared to insult him in front of him. How could he not be angry? You're just a guy with a brain full of lust. Zhuan shook his head. He could not be bothered with this arrogant young man. The handsome young man finally could not take it anymore. He stomped his foot, and a terrifying aura surged out. The gentleness on his face was replaced by murderous intent. Zhuowen had completely angered him. Peak of the ultimate five-wheel emperor stage, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. He was quite surprised. This young man, who looked like a playboy, was actually not weak. He had reached the peak of the ultimate five-wheel emperor stage. It seemed that this person's background was not ordinary. Master Kuya's expression changed slightly. With a wave of his sleeve, a terrifying mental energy shot out and filled the space between the young man and Zhuowen. The handsome young man, who originally had an imposing aura, had a slight change in expression. His aura was also pulled back under the pressure of the mental energy. Master Kuya, what do you mean? The young man stared at Master Kuya with fear and said coldly. After all, Master Kuya was once the president of the Arcane Guild branch in Broken Rock City. Now that he had returned to the headquarters, his status had risen. His status was much higher than most arcanists. Moreover, Master Kuya's mind power had reached the peak of the 4th grade. He was only one step away from becoming a legendary 5th-grade arcanist. Even the power behind the handsome young man would not offend Master Kuya too much over such a trivial matter. Master Kuya, do you have to interfere in this matter? Although your status in the Arcane Guild is not low, our Feng family is not an ordinary power. There is no benefit in offending us. The young man narrowed his eyes and said coldly. Master Kuya shook his head and said indifferently, Young Master Feng, Zhuowen is this old man's junior. I hope you can give this old man some face. The young man's face turned ugly. He knew that if Master Kuya really interfered, he would not have the chance to touch Zhuowen. The woman surnamed Huang Fu couldn't help but reveal a trace of surprise when she saw Master Kuya protecting Zhuowen. She knew that Master Kuya was willing to offend the young man, surnamed Feng, to protect Zhuowen. Clearly, Zhuowen was very important to him. Then I'll give Master Kuya face and spare your life today. However, the Imperial City is not a particularly safe place. Others can protect you for a while, but they can't protect you forever. In the future, you'd better be careful in the Imperial City. Otherwise, you won't even know if you lose your life. The young man with the family name, Feng, snorted coldly and slowly withdrew the aura that erupted from his body. He indifferently glanced at Zhuowen, and his gaze turned much colder. There was even a trace of murderous intent. Zhuowen's eyes slowly narrowed, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. This youth's surname Feng was clearly threatening him, but Zhuowen was not afraid. This person's cultivation had reached the peak of the ultimate emperor realm, and he was not weak. Unfortunately, Zhuowen was not someone to be trifled with either. Let's go. The auction on the 4th floor of the appraiser hall is about to begin. This time, besides the infinite sword formation, there are still many good things for sale. Seeing that the young man surnamed Feng had stopped attacking, Master Kuya hurriedly laughed and said with a smile. The young man, surnamed Feng, snorted coldly and took the lead to walk towards the 4th floor of the appraiser hall. Then, Huangfu Zixia and Jing Yun followed closely behind and ascended to the appraiser hall. Zhuowen, these 3 people have extraordinary identities. Among them, the man is a direct descendant of the Feng family, one of the 7 great families of the Imperial City. His name is Feng Xiang. The woman with the cold expression is a member of the Imperial family. Her name is Huangfu Zixia, and she is the direct disciple of an elder in the Arcane Guild's headquarters. Her talent is extremely terrifying, and she is the focus of the Guild's nurturing. As for Jing Yun, who is by Huangfu Zixia's side, she is also a member of the Imperial City. However, she isn't of the Imperial family's bloodline, but the descendant of a high official and noble in the Imperial City. Although her status can't compare to the Imperial family and the Feng family, she can still be considered to have some influence in the Imperial City. At this moment, Master Kuya's expression became extremely solemn. He was very clear about the backgrounds of those 3 people from before. On the other hand, Zhuowen had no background. If he offended the 3 of them, then Zhuowen would undoubtedly suffer a great loss. Zhuo nodded when he heard this. He didn't expect that those three people had such prominent identities, especially Huangfu Zixia. Not only was she a member of the imperial family, but she was also the direct disciple of an elder in the imperial city's arcane guild. Because the members of the arcane guild were all gathered in the imperial city, the arcane guild in the imperial city was undoubtedly the only and largest arcane guild in the entire Qingxian Empire. The cultivation of the elders in the arcane guild was unfathomable. It wasn't so easy to become the direct disciple of an elder in the arcane guild. If one's talent wasn't outstanding, then it would be impossible to be chosen by those picky elders. Let's go. The fourth floor isn't just auctioning the ultimate sword formation this time. There are other treasures being auctioned as well. Let's go up as well. After Master Kuya finished speaking, he led Song Mu and Zhuan up the stairs. The stairs of the appraiser hall were in a roundabout manner, like a whirlwind that spiraled upwards. Not long after, Master Kuya and the other two ascended to the fourth floor of the appraiser hall. It was a space slightly smaller than the first floor. There was a circle of seating platforms around it. At this moment, the seating platforms were already filled with a large number of people. Above the seating platforms were rows of private rooms. There were many figures inside, and there should be quite a number of people seated there. In the middle of the seating area, there was a huge platform. At this moment, an old man in a black robe with sharp eyes stood quietly on the platform. This old man's body faintly emitted a terrifying aura. He should not be a weakling. As soon as Master Kuya and the other two entered the fourth floor, a slender and elegant maidservant welcomed them with a bright smile. Especially when she saw the 4 stars on Master Kuya and Master Tsongmu's chests. The smile on her face became even more radiant. "My lords, please enter the VIP seats." The maidservant was extremely enthusiastic. She hurriedly invited Master Kuya into one of the private rooms above the seating platforms. Among the 3 of them, there were 2 Grade 4 Arcana Masters. Their statuses were noble, and she couldn't afford to neglect them. The private room was quite spacious. It could easily accommodate 20 people. At this moment, there were still a few people standing in the private room. They were Feng Xiang, Huangfu Zixia, and Jing Yun, who had arrived earlier than Master Kuya and the other 2. Perhaps they had noticed the movement of the private room's door, but the 3 of them turned around and saw Master Kuya and the other 2. After casually greeting them, their gazes were fixed on the high platform in the middle of the seating platforms below. As for Zhuan, he was completely ignored by them. In Feng Xiang's opinion, Zhuan was already a dead man. As soon as this auction ended, he would definitely capture Zhuan alive and make him suffer a fate worse than death. Everyone in the private room took their seats. Not long after, the long-robed old man on the high platform below finally opened his mouth and said in a clear voice, "Thank you for coming to the appraiser hall's auction this time." Although this old man knows the purpose of everyone's visit, the auction should be done one by one. The good things should naturally be left for the finale. This old man won't waste any more words. Let's start with the first treasure. As he spoke, the old man waved his hand. A groove immediately appeared on the high platform below his feet. Soon after, a black brocade box slowly floated up and landed in the old man's palm. Patter! The old man immediately opened the brocade box. A fragrance similar to orchids and musk wafted out, causing the expressions of many people on the high platform to change. Quietly lying inside the brocade box was an oval-shaped fruit. The strange thing was that the surface of the fruit was surrounded by white foam. The old man looked around and said indifferently, "Grade 4 spirit herb, snake saliva fruit. It's a fruit born from the saliva of a 1,000-year-old snake demon. It's quite effective for cultivators. The starting price is 10 mid-grade spirit stones. The auction begins now." Many people on the high platform became restless. It was obvious that the snake saliva fruit was quite attractive to them. 15 mid-grade spirit stones. 20 mid-grade spirit stones. Bids rose and fell on the high platform. Soon, the price of the snake saliva fruit was raised to 80 mid-grade spirit stones. It was won by an ultimate Emperor Realm 3-wheeled cultivator on the high platform below. That cultivator was quite cautious. After bidding for the snake's saliva fruit, he quietly left his seat, intending to leave the appraiser hall. However, the moment that cultivator left, a few cultivators on the high platform below followed closely behind him. It was likely that the cultivator was in a bad situation. Of course, the appraiser hall wouldn't care about this kind of thing. The appraiser hall only forbade fighting within the hall. However, once outside the appraiser hall wouldn't meddle in other people's business. Although the imperial capital was a famous big city in the Qing Xian Empire, it was far more chaotic than other places. There were too many martial artists gathered here. Friction and brawls were a common occurrence. Even robberies were common occurrences. Although the imperial guards were in charge of the imperial capital was too big. The imperial guards couldn't cover every corner. This was also the reason why other cultivators in the imperial capital took advantage of the situation and caused chaos. Zhuan naturally saw the situation below, but he shook his head and ignored it. He wouldn't meddle in the fate of that cultivator. An ordinary man's wealth is his own ruin. If one wanted to obtain a treasure, one had to have the strength to protect it. Otherwise, it would only be an illusion in the end. The auction continued in an orderly manner. The old man on the high platform continuously took out one item after another, causing a commotion on the high platform. The items were also auctioned off one after another. The next item to be auctioned is a little special. Everyone, please wait and see. Suddenly, the old man said in a solemn voice, causing the eyes of many people on the high platform to light up. If the old man, who had always been as calm as water, was so serious, then the item to be auctioned this time must be extraordinary. Whoosh! Below the high platform, a large groove appeared once again. Soon after, a transparent glass box half the height of a person slowly floated up and finally appeared above the high platform. At the same time, the temperature around the high platform rose sharply. It was like a furnace, causing many cultivators to frown. What a terrifying temperature! What exactly is this thing? Chapter 635. Firebird Plume, Feather Whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh. Countless gazes gathered on the high platform. A fiery red plume, feather, lay quietly in the glass box beside the elder. The color of the flame was exceptionally dazzling. What was even more frightening was that the terrifying temperature from earlier had come from this plume feather. Although the temperature was far from the earth fire, it was still not to be underestimated. This is a plume feather from the ancient demonic beast, the firebird. This plume feather was accidentally obtained by an expert of our pavilion in a ruin. Although the firebird cannot be compared to the ancient divine beast, the phoenix, its body contains a trace of the phoenix bloodline. The plume feather on its body is also not to be underestimated. The starting price of the firebird plume feather is 50 mid-grade spirit stones. With a shake of his sleeve, the elder gently patted the glass box beside him. His clear voice reverberated around the entire seating area. So, it is the firebird plume feather. I thought it was the phoenix plume feather. Although the firebird has the phoenix bloodline in its body, it is a pity that the bloodline is too rare. It was not a powerful demonic beast in the ancient era. The plume feather on its body is not of much use. If it was the phoenix plume feather, there would be demand for it. However, forget about the firebird plume feather. Moreover, the starting price is too high. A firebird plume feather is simply not worth this price. The originally expectant crowd shook their heads in disappointment after hearing the elder's introduction. It was obvious that the firebird plume feather was not of much use to them. The elder also sensed the deep feelings of the surrounding cultivators, and his old face was a little embarrassed. The firebird plume feather was indeed not of much use to cultivators. Only arcana masters could use the firebird plume feather to refine yuan crystals. When arcana masters refined yuan crystals, there was a chance of failure. There was only one firebird plume feather, and its starting price was so high that it instantly caused some of the arcana masters who wanted to bid for it to give up. In the private room, Zhuo Wen's eyes flashed as he stared straight at the firebird's tail feather on the high platform. When the firebird's tail feather had appeared, the acupuncture points in his body that had been opened by the great Nirvana sun had actually faintly trembled. This was a trembling of excitement. Could it be that this firebird's plume feather is beneficial to the cultivation of great sun Nirvana? Feeling the acupoints in his body trembling, Zhuan narrowed his eyes. He knew that this firebird plume feather was definitely related to the Nirvana of the great sun. I must obtain this firebird's plume feather. Zhuan muttered to himself as he clenched his fist. The moment the old man's words sounded, not a single person in the entire seating area actually opened their mouths to bid. The surroundings appeared to be extremely quiet, to the point that one could hear a pin drop. This caused the old man to be rather embarrassed, and a helpless expression appeared on his old face. This firebird plume feather was indeed obtained by an expert in their pavilion, but that expert had entrusted it to them for auction. A portion of the spirit stones from the auction would be given to that expert. Of course, if the price of the firebird plume feather had been a little lower, there might have been quite a few arcana masters interested in buying it. However, that expert was very stubborn and insisted on setting the starting price at 50 mid-grade spirit stones. With such a high starting price, it was only natural that fewer people would buy it. After waiting for a while, the old man saw that no one had opened their mouths and sighed softly. Just as he was about to withdraw the firebird plume feather, a voice suddenly rang out. 50 mid-grade spirit stones. I'll take this firebird plume feather. As soon as these words were spoken, a group of people on the seating area immediately followed the sound of the voice. Soon after, they discovered that the owner of the voice had come from the box at the very top. At the window of the box was a handsome and graceful young man. The corners of his mouth were curled upwards, and his gaze was gentle. This person was Feng Xiang. Who is this person? This firebird plume feather is completely useless. Is he going to buy it as an ornament? That person is Feng Xiang, a direct descendant of the Feng clan. In the Feng clan, he can be considered an outstanding genius. You'd better keep your voice down. The Feng clan is not to be trifled with. So it's someone from the Feng clan. With the Feng clan's background, a mere 50 mid-grade spirit stones is really a small amount. Sitting on the stage, someone immediately recognized Feng Xiang. The others also revealed expressions of relief. With the Feng clan's background, even if they spent 50 mid-grade spirit stones to buy something useless, they probably wouldn't even frown. This was the benefit of a large clan. They had a deep background. At this moment, within the box, Feng Xiang was elegant and valiant. His gaze was gentle as he stared at Huangfu Zixia. He gently said, Zixia, I'll buy this firebird plume feather for you. When I go back and make it into a hairpin, I'll personally give it to you. What do you think? As soon as Feng Xiang's words came out, Zhuan, who was beside him, immediately shook his head. This was indeed a prodigal son. Spending 50 mid-grade spirit stones to buy the firebird plume feather was actually just to make it into a hairpin as a gift. Zhuan didn't know what to say. At this moment, Jingyun, who was beside Huangfu Zixia, had an expression of envy on her face. Actually, she'd always liked Feng Xiang in her heart, especially the unique temperament on Feng Xiang's body and his handsome and valiant appearance. All of these had deeply attracted Jingyun. Unfortunately, Feng Xiang didn't take a fancy to Jingyun at all. From the beginning until the end, his gaze had been placed on Huangfu Zixia. He'd even spent 50 mid-grade spirit stones to buy the firebird plume feather for Huangfu Zixia, with the sole purpose of making it into a hairpin as a gift for Huangfu Zixia. However, Huangfu Zixia merely glanced coldly at Feng Xiang and said indifferently, Young Master Feng, Zixia appreciates your good intentions. I don't need this firebird plume feather. If young Master Feng wants to give it to someone, then give it to Jingyun. Feng Xiang's face slightly stiffened when he heard this. He rubbed his head and could only force a smile. Since Zixia doesn't like it, then I won't give it to you. As he spoke, Feng Xiang's gaze suddenly turned towards Jingyun, who was beside Huangfu Zixia, and his gaze was still gentle as he said, Then Jingyun, do you want this firebird plume feather? If you want it, I can also make it into a hairpin for you. In the Arcane Arts Guild, Huangfu Zixia and Jingyun had the best relationship. Feng Xiang obviously intended to pursue Huang Fuzixia, so naturally, he had to build a good relationship with Jing Yun. Jing Yun was stunned, and immediately a trace of shyness appeared on her face. She lowered her head and said softly, "Since young Master Feng is so polite, Jing Yun naturally won't refuse. Don't worry, this firebird plume feather will definitely suit you very well. It will definitely look good on you." Feng Xiang smiled faintly. If young Master Feng says it looks good, then it will definitely look good. Jing Yun had the posture of a little girl, as she said shyly. Looking at Jing Yun's shy posture, Zhuan's face twitched. What a stupid woman. Feng Xiang's attitude was so perfunctory, yet she couldn't see through it. She thought that Feng Xiang was good to her. Shaking his head, Zhuan no longer paid attention to Jing Yun and Feng Xiang and said loudly, 55 mid-grade spirit stones. As soon as the words came out, the atmosphere in the room suddenly became silent. The smile on Feng Xiang's face stiffened, and his eyes turned slightly, staring coldly at the young man with the green coffin on his back. The other people in the room also looked at Zhuan. They also didn't expect that Zhuan would actually bid against Feng Xiang. Was he planning to go against Feng Xiang? Someone actually bid again. I really don't know what he's thinking. This firebird plume feather isn't worth this price. The person who bid seems to be in the same room as Feng Xiang. Could it be that the two of them know each other? Sitting on the stage, many people looked at the room above in surprise because they found that the two bidding voices came from the same room. How dare you compete with me? Feng Xiang's eyes were extremely cold as he stared straight at Zhuan. Why wouldn't I dare? Could it be that after you bid, others can't bid? Or is this appraisal hall opened by your Feng family? Zhuan slowly turned his head, glanced indifferently at Feng Xiang, and spoke without any courtesy. Zhuan, you little bastard, what qualifications do you have to compete with Big Brother Feng? Jing Yun coldly glared at Zhuan. The firebird plume feather was given to her by Feng Xiang, and this Zhuan actually dared to bid. Otherwise, she would fly into a rage out of humiliation. Qualifications are not given by you. This bidding is a fair competition. If Feng Xiang wants this firebird plume feather, he can bid against me. You don't have to bark like a dog. Zhuan coldly replied. You? Jingyun was furious. She originally wanted to go up and teach Zhuan a lesson, but when she recalled the terrifying pressure that Zhuan released at the entrance of the appraisal hall, she stopped in her tracks. Her expression was uncertain. Feng Xiang frowned. Originally, he wanted to give this firebird plume feather to Huang Fuzixia. Unfortunately, Huang Fuzixia didn't accept it, so his desire to bid for this firebird plume feather was not high. However, Zhuan's bid still made Feng Xiang extremely angry. This despicable guy, who came out of nowhere, actually dared to contradict him time and time again. He didn't want to show weakness because of this. 100 mid-grade spirit stones. Feng Xiang coldly snorted. As soon as these words came out, the people sitting on the stage immediately went into an uproar. This firebird plume feather that no one was interested in actually had someone offer 100 mid-grade spirit stones. This was far beyond the value of the firebird plume feather itself. 101, Zhuan said indifferently. Feng Xiang's pupils constricted as he coldly shouted again. 200 mid-grade spirit stones. 201. 300 mid-grade spirit stones. 301. Every time Feng Xiang increased the price, Zhuan would add one more spirit stone to the original price. In the end, the price of the firebird plume feather was forcefully raised by the two of them to 900 mid-grade spirit stones. 901 mid-grade spirit stones. Zhuan continued to speak indifferently, his voice as calm as an ancient well. Instantly, the other people in the room all looked at Zhuan with astonished gazes. They did not expect that Zhuan would actually be so wealthy. Even Huang Fuzixia, who had an icy cold expression, could not help but take another look at Zhuan. Feng Xiang's eyes narrowed as he secretly thought that Zhuan was an idiot. This time, he planned to give up after increasing the price to 1,000 spirit stones. After all, the firebird plume feather was only a gift to Jing Yun, so he didn't particularly care about it. This time, Feng Xiang's goal of increasing the price to 1,000 spirit stones was to make the young man in front of him bleed. 1,000 mid-grade spirit stones. As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Xiang's gaze converged on Zhuowen, full of ridicule and provocation. He knew that Zhuowen would definitely follow, and when the time came, he would withdraw in time, and this Zhuowen would definitely bleed. Chapter 636. A snowy day. At this moment, the old man on the high platform had an excited expression on his face. Originally, he did not have much hope for the Firebird Plume Feather, but he did not expect Feng Xiang and Zhuowen to raise the price to 1,000 spiritual stones. This was already considered a sky-high price. Haha, is there anyone else who wants to raise the price? This Firebird Plume Feather is quite effective. The old man revealed a sly smile as he looked around the platform, hoping that someone would raise the price again. Of course, the old man was basically ignored by everyone. No one had bought the Firebird Plume Feather for 50 medium spiritual stones. Now that the price had been raised to 1,000 spiritual stones, how could anyone raise the price? However, the gazes of everyone on the viewing platform were focused on Zhuowen's private room. The one who had raised the price of the Firebird Plume Feather to such a high level was the two people in this private room. The one who wanted to bid was the other person in this private room. At this moment, Zhuowen indifferently glanced at the provocative Feng Xiang. His face darkened as he coldly said, 1,001 mid-grade spirit stones. If you continue to raise the price, then I won't follow. I'll let you have this Firebird Feather so that you can make it into a hairpin and give it to someone. After he finished speaking, Zhuowen deliberately glanced at Jingyun, who was behind Feng Xiang. At this moment, Jingyun's eyes were filled with anticipation. Feng Xiang had raised the price of the Firebird Plume Feather to more than 1,000 spiritual stones, which made her happy. Now, she was very much looking forward to Feng Xiang continuing to raise the price for her. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Zhuowen's words could be said to be poisonous. It was obvious that he was trying to trap Feng Xiang. If Feng Xiang continued to increase the price, it would not be worth it to obtain the Firebird's plume feather. If he did not increase the price, it would probably cause Jing Yun's hopes to be dashed. This was clearly an open scheme against Feng Xiang. Zhuowen is not simple. Song Mu and Kuya, who were standing to the side, looked at each other. Zhuowen's words had hit the nail on the head. Feng Xiang could neither advance nor retreat. Feeling Jing Yun's expectant gaze, Feng Xiang narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Humph. The Firebird plume feather is only worth 50 mid-grade spirit stones. I don't need to go crazy with you. If you want it, then take it. I won't be like an idiot and spend over 1,000 spirit stones to buy it." Huh. It seems that all your promises are bullshit. You just said that you would make the Firebird's plume feather into a hairpin as a gift, but now you choose to give up the Firebird's plume feather in front of others. You really are a two-faced person. In my opinion, your promise isn't even worth shit. Zhuowen said with a face full of ridicule. Bastard. Watch your mouth. Big Brother Feng is not the kind of person you say he is. You were the one who insisted on competing with Big Brother Feng. If it wasn't for you, Big Brother Feng would have gotten this Firebird's plume feather long ago. Although Jing Yun's face was a little gloomy when she saw Zhuowen mocking Feng Xiang, she immediately pointed the spearhead at Zhuowen. Her tone wasn't polite at all, and she sided with Feng Xiang. Jing Yun, no. Why do we need to lower ourselves to his level? There is still a lot of things to be auctioned. When the time comes, I will buy another one for you. Feng Xiang extended his hand to stop Jing Yun. The gaze he used to look at Zhuowen became increasingly sinister and cold. Zhuowen, this little bastard, had repeatedly disobeyed him and had long since aroused Feng Xiang's killing intent. He had already decided that after this auction ended, he would make this little bastard disappear from this world forever. The bidding between Zhuowen and Feng Xiang was just a small disturbance. The auction continued in an orderly manner. Treasures were auctioned off one by one. During this time, Feng Xiang kept his promise and bought another treasure for Jing Yun. Because of this, Jing Yun's face was filled with sweetness. She looked at Feng Xiang with a burning gaze. The next item is quite precious. Let's wait and see. Suddenly, the old man on the high platform shouted again, attracting the attention of the audience. A groove appeared on the high platform. Then, a crystal-clear long sword appeared in the old man's hand. A faint chill pervaded the entire high platform. This sword is called Ice Frost Heaven. It is a top Earth rank spiritual treasure. It was forged from the Earth rank Ice Frost Heaven. With a swing, it can create a terrifying ice frost heaven that revolves around the body. Its power is extremely terrifying. Ordinary earth fire can't even break through the ice frost heaven's defense. The old man's indifferent voice slowly sounded. When the sword appeared, the audience on the high platform looked at it with burning eyes. They didn't expect the ice frost heaven to be a top earth rank spiritual treasure. This kind of spiritual treasure was rare. Feeling the burning eyes of the audience, the old man looked proud. He knew that the ice frost heaven would be auctioned for a good price. The starting price is 100 medium spiritual stones. Each bid must be at least 10 spiritual stones. When the old man finished speaking, many people on the high platform couldn't wait to bid. 150 spiritual stones, 200 spiritual stones, 300 spiritual stones. The price quickly rose to 800 spiritual stones. The speed at which it rose made people speechless. It seemed that this top earth-ranked spiritual treasure was really popular. Within the private room, Huang Fuzi Xia, who originally had an ice-cold expression, revealed a trace of desire when she saw the ice and snow. Huang Fuzi Xia was originally an ice-cold woman. No matter if it was her appearance or personality, she was like a world of ice and snow. She was extremely cold and unapproachable. This ice frost heaven was extremely compatible with her. It was no wonder that Huang Fuzi Xia was moved. Feng Xiang's attention had always been on Huang Fuzi Xia. When he saw Huang Fuzi Xia's face reveal interest, his eyes immediately revealed joy. He knew that the time for him to perform had arrived. Xia, if you want this ice frost heaven, how about I bid for it for you? Feng Xiang said eagerly. No need. I'll bid for it myself. Huang Fuzi Xia replied coldly. Then, she opened her cherry lips and said in a voice as cold as ice, 1,000 spiritual stones. Feng Xiang's face was embarrassed. He could only smile embarrassedly. However, he was a little angry in his heart. He thought to himself, what an arrogant woman. However, the more arrogant you are, the more I, Feng Xiang, want to get you. Thinking of the scene of such an ice-cold yet beautiful woman falling under his crotch, a perverted smile appeared on Feng Xiang's handsome face. The bidding continued. At this moment, the price had already risen to 2,000 spirit stones. Huang Fuzi Xia, who was originally still bidding, frowned slightly. She didn't have enough spirit stones on her. She only had 2,500 spirit stones on her. Although Huang Fuzi Xia was a member of the imperial family, she didn't bring many spiritual stones with her this time. Clenching her teeth, Huang Fuzi Xia bid again. 2,500 spiritual stones. Instantly, the entire seating area became quiet. Everyone's gazes converged on the box where Huang Fuzi Xia was. This person had suddenly raised the price of the ice frost heaven from 2,000 to 2,500, so it naturally attracted everyone's attention. It's that box again. Looks like the person in that box isn't simple. Although the ice frost heaven isn't bad, it's only worth around 2,000 spiritual stones. There's no need to continue bidding. After Huang Fuzi Xia shouted out the price, many people in the seating area quieted down. The price of 2,500 spiritual stones was too high. There was no need to waste it on this spiritual treasure. Looking at the seating area that had suddenly quieted down, Huang Fuzi Xia let out a light breath. The corners of her mouth revealed a faint smile. This ice frost heaven was to her liking. Moreover, the range of the ice frost heaven released when she waved it could envelop her and form a defense. It was the most suitable for an arcana master like her. Xia, congratulations, you've obtained the spiritual treasure you like. Feng Xiang's face revealed a gentle smile, giving people a feeling of being bathed in a spring breeze. The corners of Huang Fuzi Xia's mouth rose. She really did like the ice frost heaven. Otherwise, she wouldn't have spent all her savings to bid for this spiritual treasure. 2,501 spirit stones. A calm voice slowly rang out, instantly causing the smiles on Huangfu Xia's and Feng Xiang's faces to freeze. Huangfu Xia's long, shapely eyebrows were tightly knitted. Her gaze was ice-cold as she stared at the young man who was sitting to the side with his legs crossed and a green coffin on his back. She knew that this young man was purely causing trouble at this moment. This caused Huangfu Xia to be filled with disgust towards Zhuowen. The smile on Feng Xiang's face also faded a lot. His gaze was cold as he stared at Zhuowen. He also knew that Zhuowen was simply causing trouble. This ice frost heaven doesn't seem to be of any use to you, right? Why are you bidding? Or are you purely causing trouble? Feng Xiang said indifferently. What? You're not even allowing me to bid? Is it wrong for me to bid fairly? Zhuowen still crossed his legs and said coldly. Umph. Feng Xiang coldly snorted. Soon after, he said to Huangfu Xia, Xia, if you want this ice frost heaven, I can bid for it for you. How about it? Huangfu Xia's charming face was slightly hesitant. She really did like the ice frost heaven. Unfortunately, she didn't have enough spiritual stones. After hesitating for a moment, she finally nodded. Feng Xiang's face was filled with joy. At this moment, it was finally time for him to perform. It had to be said that Zhuowen's actions could be considered as giving him a chance to perform. 3,000 spirit stones. Feng Xiang shouted in high spirits. 3,001 spirit stones. Zhuowen continued. 4,000 spiritual stones. Feng Xiang frowned slightly. He didn't expect Zhuowen to actually have so many spiritual stones on him. Thus, he added another 1,000. 4,001 spiritual stones. The two of them competed with each other. Very quickly, the price rose to 8,000 spiritual stones. This price completely caused a stir among the people on the viewing platform. 9,000 spiritual stones. Feng Xiang's face became extremely unsightly as he coldly shouted. At this moment, Feng Xiang had the intention to kill someone. This brat in front of him was too hateful. He actually forcibly raised the price of the ice frost heaven to 9,000 spiritual stones. This was almost the limit of the spiritual stones he had on him. Hee. 9,001 spirit stones, Zhuowen said in a calm voice. Crack! The veins on Feng Xiang's forehead bulged. He crushed the armrest beside him. His gaze was fixed on Zhuowen as he said word by word, 10,000 spiritual stones. If you can continue to bid, then I don't want this ice frost heaven. I'll give it to you. Hee. Young Master Feng is indeed a member of the Feng family. Your wealth is indeed not low. I'll give you face and stop competing. You can have this ice frost heaven. Chapter 637. Grandmaster Flame, according to the market price, the price of a top-grade Earth-rank spirit treasure should be around 2,000 spirit stones, and because of the Earth-rank cold energy contained within the Ice Sky Cold Sky, its price would be slightly higher, but it wouldn't exceed 2,500 spirit stones. But now, the price of the Ice Sky Cold Sky had been forcefully raised to 10,000 spirit stones. This was absolutely a sky-high price, and the gazes of many people on the platform became extremely strange. At this moment, the old man on the platform was smiling crookedly. The price of the Ice Sky Cold Sky had instantly quadrupled, and he was able to obtain an extremely generous commission from it. When he thought up to here, the old man couldn't help but have a good impression of Zhuowen, who was bidding. At this moment, within the room, Feng Xiang's expression was extremely unsightly. Because of buying the Ice Sky Cold Sky this time, he'd practically used up almost a quarter of his savings, and his heart faintly ached. Although the Feng family was large, and he could be considered a rather famous genius of the Feng family, he didn't possess that many spirit stones on him. After all, the Feng family was so large, and there were even more geniuses, so the average amount of spirit stones would naturally not be too much. Feng Xiang naturally wouldn't express the thoughts in his heart on his face. His expression was still indifferent, and his gaze was gentle. In front of Huangfu Xia, he appeared extremely calm, as if he didn't care about these 10,000 spirit stones at all. After a short while, the Ice Sky Cold Sky was brought up by a slender and elegant attendant. After receiving the Ice Sky Cold Sky, The smile on the corners of Feng Xiang's mouth gradually became wider, and he passed it over to Huangfu Zixia. Zixia, I'll give this ice sky, cold sky to you. Don't refuse. Feng Xiang's expression was warm, and he smiled warmly as he spoke. Then thank you, young Master Feng. Huangfu Zixia lightly opened her cherry lips, and the icy expression on her face slightly faded. She gracefully bowed, then received the ice sky, cold sky, and waved the sword in her jade-like hand. Instantly, cold energy was awe-inspiring, and coldness suffused the air, causing the temperature of the entire room to drop extremely. As expected of a spirit treasure made from earth-rank cold energy, the ice sky, cold sky is able to release such terrifying coldness just by waving it. Zixia, this ice sky, cold sky is truly too compatible with you. Feng Xiang couldn't help but praise. Young Master Feng, Zixia owes you a favor this time. Huangfu Zixia's pretty face revealed a touch of joy. She flicked her right hand, and the long sword immediately turned into a stream of light and entered the spirit ring on her finger. The smile on Feng Xiang's face gradually deepened. He knew that this was a pretty good start. Since Huangfu Zixia had already accepted his first gift, she would definitely accept a second one in the future. At that time, this woman would definitely be conquered by him. The auction continued to heat up. One item after another was bought by the numerous cultivators on the stage. For a time, the entire stage was filled with joy and sorrow. Finally, the old man on the stage became extremely solemn, and his gaze also became serious. The auction is about to come to an end. The next item is the finale of this auction. I'm sure that most of the guests who have come to participate in this auction are here for this item. The old man's voice was solemn and dignified, instantly drawing everyone's interest. Everyone stared at the platform with burning gazes. Just as the old man had said, the majority of the people here had come for the final item. Creak! Suddenly, the old man's right hand turned into a claw and fiercely clawed at his feet. A terrifying power erupted, and in an instant, the huge platform was shattered by the old man's power. The platform shattered, and from the empty space below, streaks of soul-stirring cold light swept out. The sound of metal clashing resounded around the entire platform. Everyone focused their gazes and discovered that the streaks of cold light were actually cold long swords. Moreover, the aura of each of the long swords was extremely strong. They formed a rather large sword array above the platform. If one was attentive, they would discover that this huge sword array was divided into 5 positions. 4 of the positions had a small sword array, and the remaining position was empty for some unknown reason. Ultimate sword array. On the stage, everyone's gazes were focused on this huge sword array. Their gazes were filled with burning gazes. This was a 5th grade origin array. Although it was not as powerful as an ordinary 5th grade origin array, because it was missing a small sword array, it was definitely much more powerful than an ordinary 4th grade origin array. This sword array is known as the Ultimate Sword Array. I'm sure everyone has heard of it before. The Ultimate Sword Array is a 5th grade origin array. Originally, a 5th grade origin array was extremely precious, and it was impossible for our appraiser hall to auction off. However, as everyone can see, this sword array is incomplete. The greater everlasting sword formation is formed from 5 small sword formations. The 5 small sword formations form this greater everlasting sword formation with boundless might. Unfortunately, this sword formation just so happens to be missing a small sword formation, causing its might to greatly decrease. However, its might still far surpasses a grade 4 origin formation. This origin array might not be of much use to a 5th grade Arcana Master, but it's extremely useful to a 4th grade Arcana Master. Although a 4th grade Arcana Master is unable to unleash its full power, the power it can unleash still surpasses that of many 4th grade origin arrays. I'm sure many masters want to obtain this sword array. At this point, the breathing of many Arcana Masters became hurried. It was precisely because the appraiser hall was auctioning the ultimate sword array that most of the Arcana Masters gathered here. Moreover, most of them were 4th grade Arcana Masters. This was also the reason why Master Tsang Mu and Master Ku Ye came to the appraiser hall together. Inside the box, Master Tsang Mu, Master Ku Ye, and Huangfu Zixa's eyes were filled with a trace of fervor. This ultimate sword array was too important to a 4th grade Arcana Master. Its power surpassing that of a 4th grade Origin array was enough to greatly increase their strength. Zhuowen's eyes flickered and his brows furrowed. He could faintly feel that the sword array and the ultimate sword array's missing position had a trace of compatibility with the ultimate sword aura on his body. Moreover, the moment the ultimate sword array appeared, Zhuowen could clearly feel that the ultimate sword aura in his spiritual ring actually let out a sword cry. It was extremely excited. Could it be that the small sword formation that was missing from the greater limitless sword formation was really the limitless sword aura? Feeling the strange movement of the limitless sword aura in the spirit ring, Zhuowen's heart thumped wildly. The greater limitless sword formation was a genuine Tier 5 Origin array. Even if it was incomplete now, its power was far beyond an ordinary Tier 4 Origin array. If it was a complete, greater, limitless sword formation, its power would reach the terrifying power of a genuine Tier 5 Origin array. Even if Zhuo, when met Elder Shur of the Grand Family again, he was confident that he could kill him. I must obtain this ultimate sword array. Squinting his eyes, Zhuowen secretly made up his mind. Right now, he had 50,000 spiritual stones on him, so he was qualified to compete for this ultimate sword array. No matter how much it cost, Zhuowen had to obtain this ultimate sword array. Because he possessed the ultimate sword aura, he had the possibility of repairing the ultimate sword array. Once it was repaired, it would be a genuine 5th grade Origin array. It would be an explosive increase to Zhuowen's strength. I won't waste any more words. Let's start the bidding now. The ultimate sword array's base price is 5,000 spiritual stones. Each bid must not be less than 1,000 spiritual stones. As soon as the old man finished speaking, many people on the stage sucked in a breath of cold air. Just the base price was 5,000 spiritual stones. Such a terrifying price was enough to make most of the people on the stage give up. 6,000 spiritual stones. After a moment of silence, someone in a private room above the stage finally called out a price. Everyone on the stage shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They knew that this ultimate sword array was not something they could compete for. The only people who could afford this sword array were the big shots in the VIP seats above. 7,000 spiritual stones. Another private room called out. 8,000 spiritual stones. Inside the box, Master Kuya also yelled out. His eyes were filled with a burning desire. As for Master Karaki, he shook his head helplessly. He only had 8,000 spiritual stones on him, so he didn't have the ability to bid at all. He could only watch others bid. 10,000 spiritual stones. The bidding price rose rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it had risen to 20,000 spiritual stones. In the private room, Master Kuya smiled bitterly. He didn't continue bidding. Although he had some status in the Arcane Guild, he didn't have many spiritual stones on him. 20,000 spiritual stones was his limit. Young Master Feng, how many spiritual stones do you have? At this moment, Huangfu Zixia suddenly looked at Feng Xiang and asked. When Feng Xiang heard this, the corners of his mouth rose. He quickly smiled and said, I still have 30,000 spiritual stones. If Zixia wants to bid, I'll give them all to you. You don't have to give them to me. You just need to lend them to me. When this auction is over, I'll return them to you, Huangfu Zixia replied faintly. I'm honored. The smile on Feng Xiang's face widened as he said repeatedly, 25,000 spiritual stones. Huangfu Zixia nodded and opened her cherry lips slightly. Her clear voice was heard again, causing the surrounding private rooms to fall silent. Huangfu Zixia's courage to raise 5,000 spiritual stones in one go was quite impressive. Many people were stunned. 26,000 spiritual stones. Suddenly, an aged voice came from the private room opposite them. Huangfu Zixia frowned slightly and said in a clear voice, 30,000 spiritual stones. What great courage! She actually raised another 5,000 spiritual stones. Many people in the seats shook their heads and sighed. The people in the VIP seats were indeed big shots. They actually raised the price so high in one go. A displeased snort suddenly came from the private room opposite them. He called out again, 35,000 spiritual stones. I'm Master Yanhua. I hope the friend opposite us will give me some face and let me have the ultimate sword formation. As soon as this was said, many people in the seats were surprised. Even Huangfu Zixia, Kuya, and the others in the private room had a change in expression. It's actually Master Yanhua. The temptation of this ultimate sword formation is really strong. Even Master Yanhua has come to bid for it. Master Kuya frowned slightly. Huangfu Zixia's beautiful face was indeterminate and hesitant. Obviously, she was extremely afraid of Master Yanhua. After pondering for a while, she finally sighed and said, since it's Master Yanhua, then I'm Huangfu Zixia. I'll give Master Yanhua face and give up this bid. Chapter 638. The Furious Feng Xiang. Oh, so you're Zixia, little girl. I owe you a favor this time. Next time, if you need anything, feel free to come to the Arcane Guild to find me. I will do my best to help you. In the opposite room, Grandmaster Yanhua's tone became much gentler after he heard Huangfu Zixia's words. After all, Huangfu Zixia was a member of the imperial family, and she was also the disciple of Elder Qinyu, one of the 9 great elders of the Arcane Guild's headquarters. Her status was extremely noble. Grandmaster Yanhua wasn't a blindly arrogant person. Since Huangfu Zixia was giving him face, he naturally wouldn't neglect it. A smile immediately appeared on Huangfu Zixia's pretty face. She knew very well that although Grandmaster Yanhua's spiritual energy wasn't very strong, his father's position in the Arcane Guild was extremely high. He was the son of Elder Lu Li, who was ranked second among the 9 great elders in the guild. Although Huangfu Zixia's teacher, Grandmaster Qinyu, was one of the 9 elders, he was only ranked 8th. His status and strength were much lower than Elder Lu Li's. This was also the reason why Huangfu Zixia was afraid of Grandmaster Yanhua. After all, although the Imperial Capital's Arcane Guild couldn't compare to the Imperial family and the Blue Dragon Hall, its influence was extremely great. Moreover, Arcanists were able to refine origin crystals and origin formations that some cultivators liked, so Arcanists had many powerful friends behind them. If the Arcane Guild were to gather those experts and friends, it would be enough to shake the power of the Imperial family in the Imperial capital. This was also why the Arcane Guild's status in the Imperial capital was so high that even the Imperial family did not dare to offend the Arcane Guild. From the whispers around him, Zhuowen naturally knew about Master Yanhua's background. He didn't expect Master Yanhua to be the son of Elder Lioli, who was ranked second among the 9 great elders of the Arcane Guild. He was also a perfect Grade 4 Arcanist and held an extremely high position in the Arcane Guild. The old man on the high platform was originally hoping that someone would bid and raise the price a little. Now that he saw that Grandmaster Yanhua had actually revealed his identity, the old man's eyes were immediately filled with disappointment. He knew that since Grandmaster Yanhua had revealed his identity, it meant that he was determined to obtain the greater infinite sword formation. As for the others present, it was unlikely that they would be able to compete with Grandmaster Yanhua. 35,000 spirit stones. Although I didn't reach my target, it's still not bad. The old man could only console himself like this. He was just about to finalize the ultimate sword formation when a clear and indifferent voice suddenly sounded out from above. 36,000 spirit stones. The moment this voice rang out, everyone on the viewing platform fell into silence. They were all too familiar with this voice. Wasn't this the young man who had raised the price with Feng Xiang at the beginning? Originally, Grandmaster Yanhua had revealed his identity in order to prevent others from competing with him. However, even though this young man knew this, he still continued to bid. It was obvious that he did not place Grandmaster Yanhua in his eyes. There were 3 people in the room across from him. All 3 of them were dressed in long gray robes, and there were 4 stars embroidered on their chests. Clearly, all 3 of them were rank 4 Arcana Masters. The person in the middle was about 40 years old. He had a protruding forehead and a white beard at his temples. When his eyes opened and closed, there was always a trace of light. This person was Grandmaster Yinhua. Beside Grandmaster Yinhua were two old men in their 70s. These two old men stood quietly behind Grandmaster Yinhua. They had the attitude of obeying orders at any time. They should be Grandmaster Yinhua's subordinates. Crack! Grandmaster Yinhua's hands clenched, and the armrests beside his hands were instantly crushed. His eyes narrowed, containing a bone-chilling coldness. Through the window of the room, he coldly stared at the room across from him. Li Hu, go and find out who is bidding with me in the room across from us. Grandmaster Yinhua coldly snorted. Yes, this subordinate will go and find out. The old man on Grandmaster Yinhua's left nodded respectfully, then silently left the room. Li Long, how many spirit stones do we have left? Grandmaster Yinhua said to the old man on his right. This time, we only brought 40,000 spirit stones, Li Long said in a low voice. I like to see who it is. He actually dares to challenge me. In the Imperial City, there aren't many people who dare to provoke me. Yinhua. As Grandmaster Yinhua spoke, a cruel smile appeared on his face. 40,000 spirit stones. I'll give you one last chance. Give up immediately. Otherwise, next year today will be the anniversary of your death. Grandmaster Yinhua's loud voice rang out once again. His tone faintly revealed a trace of hostility and coldness. Zhuowen, don't compete with Grandmaster Yinhua. His position in the Arcane Guild isn't low. If you bid with him, you'll lose more than you gain. In the room, Grandmaster Kuya hurriedly spoke up. There was a trace of deep worry on his face. He also didn't expect that Zhuowen would actually dare to compete with Grandmaster Yinhua. At the same time, he was also shocked by Zhuowen's wealth. He was actually able to bid 36,000 spirit stones. That's right. Grandmaster Yinhua's background is very strong. Zhuowen, you'll lose more than you gain by provoking him. Give up the bid. Grandmaster Karaki also advised. As for Feng Xiang and Jing Yun, they stood to the side and sneered again and again. Their faces were filled with gloating expressions. As for Huang Fuzi Xia, her expression was still cold, but her gaze was on Zhuowen. The young man in front of her had really exceeded her expectations. He clearly didn't look like a genius from the imperial capital, but he actually had such a rich background. Moreover, the terrifying pressure he released at the entrance of the appraiser hall was still deeply etched in Huang Fu Zixia's memory. In addition, Zhuowen clearly knew about Grandmaster Yinhua's background, yet he still dared to bid. Moreover, he didn't seem to be worried at all. In her eyes, Zhuowen became even more mysterious. Grandmaster Kuya, Old Man Karaki, I know what I'm doing. Don't worry. Zhuowen smiled faintly. Soon after, he opened his mouth again and said in a clear voice, 41,000 spirit stones. Crack! In the opposite booth, Grandmaster Yinhua smashed the chair he was sitting on. He said each word coldly. Good job. He actually dares to snatch something from me. Yinhua, is he tired of living? Grandmaster Yinhua, do you want me to help you get rid of this person? Li Long's sinister voice sounded from behind. No need. The appraiser hall doesn't allow fighting. We can't break the rules. Let's find out the identity of the person who made the bid first. Once he leaves the appraiser hall, the infinite sword formation will still fall into our hands. Of course, that fellow will pay the price in blood. At this point, Grandmaster Yinhua's gaze became much colder and crueler. The surrounding atmosphere became extremely heavy. The old man on the high platform had a smile on his face like a blooming chrysanthemum. The gratitude he felt for Zhuowen was like a torrential river. The infinite sword formation was auctioned off for 41,000 spirit stones. He had achieved his goal. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? The old man laughed mischievously. His gaze landed on Grandmaster Yinhua's room, and he raised his voice. He was now looking forward to Grandmaster Yinhua raising the price again. However, after waiting for a long time, Grandmaster Yinhua still remained silent. Everyone knew that Grandmaster Yinhua probably only had 40,000 spirit stones on him. A trace of disappointment appeared on the old man's face. He waved his sleeves, and the infinite sword formation in the sky instantly turned into rays of sword light. The old man had unknowingly dragged a huge metal box in his hand. Numerous long swords were all placed inside the metal box. Soon after, the metal box slowly closed. Since no one wants to bid, then the infinite sword formation will belong to this customer. The old man was full of smiles as he pointed at Zhuowen's room. Zhuowen, you have offended Grandmaster Yinhua this time. I'm afraid the consequences will be unimaginable. Grandmaster Karaki and Grandmaster Kuya both sighed at the same time. Both of them were arcanists from the Arcane Guild. They were very clear about Grandmaster Yinhua's background. Zhuowen had offended someone he shouldn't have. However, Zhuowen wasn't afraid at all. He definitely had to get the infinite sword formation. Because he had the infinite sword intent, he had the possibility of repairing the infinite sword formation. Once the infinite sword formation was repaired, it would be a grade 5 origin formation. Its power would probably become extremely terrifying. When that time came, Zhuowen would be able to kill a 7-wheel ultimate emperor. This thing would be of great help to him in the Battle of the 9 Counties. He wouldn't give it up. As for Grandmaster Yinhua, Zhuowen didn't believe that this guy would privately use the Arcane Guild's power to deal with him. After all, Grandmaster Yinhua didn't have the final say in the Arcane Guild. Moreover, Zhuowen was a grade 4 arcanist. His talent and mental strength were both top-notch. Zhuowen believed that as long as he registered as a grade 4 arcanist in the Arcane Guild, Grandmaster Yinhua wouldn't dare to deal with him openly. As for secretly dealing with him, Zhuowen wasn't afraid at all. What a reckless little bastard. You're dead for offending Grandmaster Yinhua. Hee, no one can save you. Jing Yun, who was standing beside Feng Xiang, suddenly sneered at Zhuowen. She stared at Zhuowen as if she was looking at a dead man. Shut your dog mouth. If you continue to talk, don't blame me for being impolite. Jing Yun had insulted Zhuowen time and time again. This had already made Zhuowen extremely unhappy. At this moment, he turned his head and stared coldly at Jing Yun. Jing Yun was startled by Zhuowen's words. Although she was afraid of Zhuowen's strength, when she thought of Feng Xiang beside her, her courage rose. Who do you think you are? How dare you ask me to shut up? Do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you're stronger than me? Let me tell you, Brother Feng can crush you to death with one finger. Kneel down and apologize immediately. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to walk out of this room. Jing Yun said coldly. Crush me to death with one finger? Just based on the trash beside you? Slowly turning around, Zhuowen glanced coldly at Jing Yun. Soon after, his gaze landed on Feng Xiang beside her, and he sneered without any trace of politeness. Feng Xiang, who originally had a smile on his face, suddenly froze. His eyes narrowed dangerously as he stared coldly at Zhuowen and said, Who did you just call trash? I dare you to say it again. Oh, so you're saying that you admit that you're trash? Zhuowen said with a smirk. Chapter 639. Attack. Boom. A terrifying aura surged out. Feng Xiang's body moved without any wind, and his hair danced in the wind. His gaze was bone-chilling as he stared coldly at Zhuowen and said in a low voice, Little bastard, aren't you a little too arrogant? How dare you call me trash? I'll give you a chance now. Slap yourself, kneel down, and cripple your cultivation. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Oh, so you're the only one allowed to call me a bastard, but I'm not allowed to call you trash? Feng Xiang, you sure have a lot of face. I didn't provoke you at first, but you used me as a stepping stone to show off in front of Huangfu Zixia. Do you really think you're qualified? Turning around, Zhuowen's gaze was as calm as water. He looked at Feng Xiang as if he was looking at a clown. I'm a direct descendant of the Feng clan. Who do you think you are? You're just a lowly person from Muqing County. How dare you compare yourself to me? You should feel honored that I called you a bastard. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother with a lowly person like you. Calling you a bastard is your honor. Feng Xiang raised his head slightly and looked down at Zhuowen. His expression was full of arrogance. He was a direct descendant of the Feng clan. Although he wasn't ranked very high in the Feng clan, he was still considered a genius. There were very few people in the imperial capital who dared to provoke him. As for Zhuowen, Judging from his relationship with Master Kuya and Master Karaki, Zhuowen should also be a genius from the imperial capital for Muqing County. Muqing County was ranked second last in the previous battle of the 9 counties. It was far inferior to the Feng clan, so Feng Xiang looked down on it. What a hopeless idiot. Your fart stinks. Zhuowen shook his head and said with a mocking expression. Seeing Zhuowen's unrestrained words, Jing Yun sneered. Huang Fuzi, Xia, shook her head and thought that Zhuowen was simply courting death. Feng Xiang was considered a genius with some fame in the Feng clan. After all, he was at the peak of the ultimate emperor stage. He was an expert who had the strength to enter the Azure Emperor ranking. Although Zhuo Wen's performance at the entrance of the Court of Treasures was impressive, the guards at the entrance were only at the initial stage of the ultimate emperor realm. The difference between them and Feng Xiang was too great. If Feng Xiang were to face off against those two burly men, he would be able to crush them. The expressions of Master Kuya and Master Kuraki changed slightly. At the same time, the bitterness on their faces intensified. The two of them didn't expect Zhuo Wen's ability to stir up trouble to become even more profound after not seeing him for a few years. First, he offended Master Yanhua. Now, he even angered Feng Xiang. Young Lord Feng, Kuya and Kuraki, Master Kuraki, and Master Kuraki Kuya, Feng, Kuraki, Lu Kuya, and Kuraki Master Translations Master. I've already given this bastard a chance. If it weren't for the two Grandmasters' face, this Feng would have already crippled this little bastard. Unfortunately, this bastard doesn't know his place and has contradicted me many times. How can I tolerate that? Feng Xiang said coldly. Kuya and Kuraki were in a difficult position. They couldn't offend Feng Xiang, but they didn't want Zhuowen to be hurt either. Hence, they hesitated. Master Kuya, old man Kuraki, step aside. This trash can't hurt me. Zhuowen shook his head and said indifferently. Crack. Feng Xiang clenched his fists so tightly that crackling sounds could be heard. Zhuo Wen's repeated words of trash had already infuriated him. Even if he had to violate the rules of the appraiser hall, he would still cripple this little bastard before him and make him suffer a fate worse than death. Die! Feng Xiang shouted angrily and moved his feet. He passed by Kuya and Master Kuraki in an instant and rushed toward Zhuowen. His right hand formed a palm, and a terrifying power erupted, aiming for Zhuowen's forehead. This bastard is dead. With Brother Feng's help, he will be crippled even if he doesn't die. Jing Yun sneered. It was as if she could see the scene of Zhuowen being killed. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Even though Feng Xiang's cultivation had reached the peak of the ultimate emperor realm, Zhuowen didn't take him seriously at all. After all, he had once fought against an early-stage ultimate emperor realm cultivator. Even though he was at a disadvantage, he was at least undefeatable. Zhuowen only lightly punched upwards. Golden light sprinkled down like a curtain of rain, instantly exploding on Feng Xiang's palm. A terrifying power exploded, forming balls of qi waves between the two of them. Feng Xiang's face froze, and his gaze froze. Then, he felt a piercing pain in his right palm. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out. Feng Xiang's eyes were filled with terror. Like a withered leaf, he flew backward and smashed out of the box. His figure landed on the seats below in a sorry state. What's going on? Is there a fight in the room? The inspection treasure hall has a rule that no fighting is allowed inside. Who is so bold to ignore the rules? That must be Feng Xiang from the Feng family. He was thrown out of the room. Who is so arrogant to hit Feng Xiang? Everyone on the seats immediately noticed that the person who flew out of the room and landed miserably on the seats was the handsome young man, Feng Xiang. Then, everyone looked up and noticed a young man carrying a green coffin on his back slowly stepping out of the broken box. He stood high above and looked down at Feng Xiang, who was in a sorry state. You can't even take a single move from me. Tell me, are you trash or not? Zhuo Wen's indifferent voice slowly rang out. There was a hint of ridicule at the corner of his mouth. Feng Xiang stood up in a miserable manner at this moment. Fury attacked his heart when he heard Zhuo Wen's words. Immediately, He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His eyes were filled with shock and fury while his heart churned like a storm. How could this young man be so powerful? He was at the peak of the five-wheel ultimate emperor realm, but he was defeated in one blow. Feng Xiang's face burned as he felt everyone's gazes on him. Being defeated in one move in front of so many people, Feng Xiang's face was completely lost. What? Feng Xiang couldn't even take one blow from this person? How is that possible? Everyone on the seats was in an uproar. Feng Xiang was a well-known genius in the Feng family. He was at the peak of the five-wheel ultimate emperor realm, but he couldn't even take one blow from this unfamiliar young man. Wasn't this too terrifying? Inside the room, Master Kuya and Master Karaki were stunned. They stared blankly at Zhuowen's back. They didn't expect Feng Xiang to be defeated so easily by Zhuowen. Although they were confident in Zhuowen's talent, they only thought that Zhuowen was at the peak of the four-wheel ultimate emperor realm. After all, Zhuowen was only a half-step ultimate emperor realm cultivator before he participated in the battle for the Vitality Tower. It was impossible for his cultivation to improve so quickly in just 1 year. However, when they saw Feng Xiang in such a sorry state and Zhuowen standing straight, Master Kuya and Master Karaki exchanged glances. They knew that they had completely underestimated Zhuowen's strength. What? Brother Feng lost? He lost in one blow. Jingyun's cold smile froze. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Feng Xiang, who was like a god in her heart, had been defeated so thoroughly and cleanly. What an arrogant little bastard. You actually dared to fight in the appraiser hall. Today, this seat will teach you a lesson on behalf of the appraiser hall. A cold voice suddenly rang out from the room opposite them. A terrifying mental energy spread out, causing the room to shatter. 3 figures slowly floated in the air with the help of mental energy. The person in the lead was around 40 years old. He had a protruding forehead and a white beard at his temples. When he opened and closed his eyes, they would always reveal traces of light. This person was Master Yanhua. Grandmaster Yanhua's cold gaze slowly focused on Zhuowen, who was carrying the green coffin on his back. Just now, Li Hu had already secretly investigated. The person who had bid against him for the greater limitless sword formation was this brat in front of him. Therefore, when Zhuowen made his move, he immediately came out. The appraiser hall had a rule that prohibited private fights. Master Yanhua had originally planned to wait for Zhuowen to leave the appraiser hall before making his move. But since Zhuowen was the first to break the rule, Master Yanhua naturally didn't have any scruples. You're Master Yanhua? You speak with a dignified name, but your actual goal should be to snatch the greater infinity sword formation, right? Zhuowen's gaze shifted as he stared at Master Yanhua. Master Yanhua's gaze gradually turned gloomy. Zhuowen's words weren't polite at all, causing him to feel extremely displeased. With his status, when had he ever received such an attitude? The appraiser hall doesn't allow private fights. You clearly know that you're breaking the rules. If I don't capture you, how can I convince everyone? As for the greater infinity sword formation in your hands, that thing isn't something a bastard like you can possess, Master Yanhua said indifferently. Then a bastard like you is qualified to possess it? Zhuowen coldly replied. What did you say? You actually dare to call me a bastard? Are you courting death? Master Yanhua's face twitched. The mental energy within his body uncontrollably surged out, forming a mental energy sea around him. As expected of Master Yanhua, his mental energy is actually so powerful. I'm afraid that he'll soon break through to become a 5th-grade Arcana Master. Sensing the terrifying mental energy around Master Yanhua, the expressions of many people in the surroundings changed. Their gazes towards Master Yanhua were filled with reverence. Below the stage, Feng Xiang slowly stood up. His gaze was filled with hatred as he loudly said, Master Yanhua, the one who bid against you for the greater infinity sword formation is this bastard. He doesn't even put you in his eyes. I originally wanted to persuade him to give up, but this bastard ambushed me. This kid is arrogant and shameless to the extreme. You can't let him off. If we're talking about shamelessness, then Feng Xiang, you're the most shameless. inverting right and wrong. Can your face be any thicker? Zhuowen coldly said. Don't quibble. You really did ambush Feng Xiang, causing him to lose. Moreover, you disregarded the appraiser hall's rules. A shameless and shameless bastard like you must be eliminated today. Grandmaster Yinhua's sinister voice rang out. Shortly after, the mental energy around him started to boil. Black flames started to rise and revolved around Grandmaster Yinhua. In an instant, the temperature of the entire seating area became extremely terrifying. Many weaker warriors quickly retreated. Master Yinhua, this is the appraiser hall, not your arcane guild. If you want to fight, you'd better leave the appraiser hall first. Otherwise, don't blame this old man for being impolite. Chapter 640. Repairing the Greater Infinity Sword Formation, the voice caused Master Yinhua, who was about to make a move, to freeze. He narrowed his eyes and stared at the auctioneer on the stage. Elder Zhou, are you trying to stop me? I'm not trying to stop you, but this is the appraisal hall. Master Yinhua should know that private fights are not allowed here, so I'm just following the rules of the appraisal hall. Elder Zhou slowly raised his head with a calm gaze. At the same time, a terrifying aura burst out from his body. Instantly, the air on the fourth floor froze. What a terrifying aura. This auctioneer is not simple. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and focused on Elder Zhou. The aura this old man emitted was much stronger than Elder Shi from the Grand family. His cultivation was definitely above the ultimate seven-wheel emperor realm. Grandmaster Yinhua's face was extremely gloomy. Old man Zhou was one of the higher-ups of the appraiser hall and was slightly stronger than him. If Grandmaster Yinhua really made a move on Zhou when in front of this old man, Grandmaster Yinhua would probably suffer. This little bastard made a move on Feng Xiang. I think Elder Zhou has always been impartial. This little bastard should be punished properly. Master Yinhua snorted coldly and did not make a move in the end. His cold gaze focused on Zhuowen as he spoke sinisterly. This is the first time this little brother has come to the appraisal hall. As the saying goes, the ignorant are fearless. I'll let him off this time, but there won't be a next time. Elder Zhou glanced at Zhuowen. Hearing this, Master Yinhua's face darkened. Now, even an idiot could see that Master Yinhua was trying to save Zhuowen's life. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. This Elder Zhou was obviously biased towards him. However, when he thought about how Elder Zhou had helped to bid for the items in the auction and how Zhuowen had spent a large sum of money to buy the Greater Infinity Sword Formation, Zhuowen felt relieved. What? Does Master Yinhua still want to cause trouble? Although our appraisal hall is not comparable to the Arcane Guild, it's not enough for you to do whatever you want in our appraisal hall. Elder Zhou's gaze became sharper and his aura became more terrifying. It was like a 10,000 zhang long mountain that suddenly covered the surrounding space, causing Master Yinhua's face to turn even darker. Elder Zhou, you must be joking. Since Elder Zhou has stepped forward, Yinhua, I will naturally give you face. We won't cause a ruckus in the appraisal hall. However, if this little bastard leaves the appraisal hall, Elder Zhou, please don't stop us. Grandmaster Yinhua's words were filled with deep meaning, causing Zhuowen's eyes to narrow. This Grandmaster Yinhua actually dared to threaten him in such a blatant manner. Clearly, this fellow was planning to rob the appraiser hall by force. Of course, the appraiser hall is only in charge of the internal affairs of the appraiser hall. As for matters outside the appraiser hall, this old man naturally won't meddle in other people's business, Elder Zhou said calmly. If that's the case, that's good. Grandmaster Yinhua let out a sigh of relief. His gaze gathered on Zhuowen as he coldly said, Little bastard, I will be waiting for you outside the appraiser hall. Come out if you have the guts. Don't be a coward. Zhuowen sneered and said, Who do you think you are? Do you think I'll go out just because you want me to? Grandmaster Yinhua's expression froze as the veins on his forehead bulged. This little bastard before him was getting more and more arrogant. He actually dared to speak in such a manner in front of him. He must be tired of living. If you have the guts, then stay inside for the rest of your life. Grandmaster Yinhua coldly snorted before leaving the appraisal hall with Li Hu and Li Long. As for Feng Xiang, he also glared at Zhuowen before leaving with his tail between his legs. It was too embarrassing just now. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, he was defeated by a nameless Zhuowen in one move. How could he still have the face to stay here? Senior, thank you for your help this time. Zhuowen arrived in front of Elder Zhou and cupped his hands respectfully. No need to thank me. This old man is only protecting the interests of the customer. Since you have won the Greater Infinity Sword formation, this old man will not let anything happen to you before you obtain it. Take it. This is the Greater Infinity Sword formation. Speaking until here, Elder Zhou waved his sleeve, and a metal box that was half a man's height appeared beside Zhuowen's feet. The heavy weight actually caused a crack to appear on the ground. Looking at the metal box, Zhuowen's eyes flickered. With a wave of his right hand, the metal box was instantly stored in his spiritual ring. Young friend, you must be an Arcana Master as well. If you refine this Greater Infinity Sword formation, your strength will definitely increase by a level. Young friend, you can stay in the appraisal hall for a few more days. You can leave after you refine this Greater Infinity Sword formation. Old Man Zhou spoke in a meaningful tone before he left the place. The other people seated on the stage also scattered. After the auction ended, there was naturally no reason for them to remain here. However, the people on the stage were not in a hurry to leave the appraisal hall. Instead, they gathered at the entrance of the appraisal hall. They remembered that Grandmaster Yinhua was waiting for Zhuowen at the entrance of the appraisal hall. They wanted to see if Zhuowen would dare to leave the appraisal hall with Grandmaster Yinhua around. At this moment, there were many people gathered at the entrance of the appraisal hall. In the middle of these people, there were 4 figures quietly waiting at the entrance. These 4 people were Grandmaster Yinhua, and Feng Xiang. Grandmaster Yinhua, that kid is not simple. When he leaves the appraisal hall, you must not be careless. Feng Xiang respectfully said to Grandmaster Yinhua. Feng Xiang had suffered at the hands of Zhuowen before. He knew that Zhuowen was not weak. If he was careless, he might be able to escape. Even if that little bastard is not simple, this time I will make him bleed and live a life worse than death. Thinking about Zhuowen's rude words, Grandmaster Yinhua's anger surged. He wished that he could tear apart Zhuowen's bones and pull out his tendons. Hearing this, Feng Xiang's eyes revealed a trace of hatred. He knew that with Grandmaster Yinhua and the others around, once Zhuowen stepped out of the appraisal hall, he would definitely die. In the crowd, Huangfu Zixia and Jing Yun silently stood together. Their gazes were also focused on Feng Xiang, Grandmaster Yinhua, and the others. That Zhuowen is dead meat. Although his strength is not bad, he is brainless. He even dared to offend Grandmaster Yinhua. When he comes out, I wonder how he will die. Jingyan said with a cold smile. Huangfu Zixia's beautiful eyes flickered as she shook her head. Clearly, she did not believe that Zhuowen could escape from Grandmaster Yinhua and the others after leaving the appraisal hall. Inside the appraisal hall, Elder Zhou arranged a quiet room for Zhuowen. On the other hand, Kuya and Tsang Mu left the appraisal hall under Zhuowen's persuasion. Zhuowen knew that Grandmaster Yinhua's strength was stronger than Tsang Mu and Kuya. Even if the 2 of them stayed by his side, they would not be of any help. Instead, they would offend Grandmaster Yinhua because of him. The gains did not make up for the losses. As for Lu Er, she also left the appraisal hall and returned to the intoxicated spring pavilion under Zhuowen's orders. Zhuowen quietly sat cross-legged on the futon in the room. With a wave of his right hand, a large metal box appeared before him. Shortly after, the metal box opened. Rays of cold light flickered as a huge sword array revolved around Zhuowen's body. It was the Greater Infinity Sword Array. The moment the Greater Infinity Sword Array appeared, Zhuowen's eyes flickered. With a flick of his finger, the Infinity Sword aura in his spiritual ring turned into a stream of light and appeared before him. Buzz! 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 Sword cries resounded. The moment the Infinity Sword Array appeared, the originally quiet Greater Infinity Sword Array actually trembled, as if it was excited and longing for it. The Infinity Sword aura is indeed an incomplete small sword array of the Greater Infinity Sword Array. Sensing the abnormality of the Greater Infinity Sword Array, Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He was even more certain that the Infinity Sword aura was an incomplete small sword array of the greater infinity sword array. Thinking about how he could completely restore the greater infinity sword array, Zhuowen was abnormally excited. This was a true 5th grade origin array. Its might was absolutely beyond his expectations. Let's try to merge the Infinity Sword aura into the greater Infinity Sword array first. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Zhuowen began to control the Infinity Sword aura in his hand and slowly approached the damaged part of the greater Infinity Sword array. Whoosh! What surprised Zhuowen was that the greater Infinity Sword array did not resist at all. The damaged part did not obstruct the entry of the Infinity Sword aura at all. The two fused together very well. Moreover, the degree of compatibility was constantly increasing as time passed. At this speed, it should be able to completely fuse together in 3 days. At that time, the greater Infinity Sword array will be completely restored and become a complete 5th grade origin array. Looking at the greater Infinity Sword array and the Infinity Sword aura that were slowly fusing together, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with joy. At the same time, his heart was filled with joy. He did not expect that Zhuowen, would actually possess a 5th grade origin array. Although his mental strength was only at the 4th grade advanced realm and could not unleash the full power of the 5th grade origin array, even if it was only a portion of its power, the greater Infinity Sword array was still superior to many 4th grade origin arrays. Its power was comparable to an ordinary heaven-ranked soul treasure. If Zhuowen's mental strength reached the 5th grade, he would be able to unleash the full power of the greater Infinity Sword array. At that time, the greater Infinity Sword array would be truly terrifying. There are still 3 days. I can refine this firebird's plume feather first. With a flick of his finger, a blazing red plume feather suddenly appeared in Zhuowen's palm. This plume feather was the firebird's plume feather that Zhuowen had bid for. Because the nirvana of the great sun reacted to the firebird's plume feather, Zhuowen gritted his teeth and bid for it. Boom! When the firebird's plume feather laid quietly in his palm, all the acupuncture points in Zhuowen's body trembled involuntarily. Following that, a golden torrent gushed out from the acupuncture points in his body. After this golden torrent appeared outside of Zhuowen's body, it actually turned into a dazzling golden flame. The moment the golden flame appeared, the temperature of the entire room skyrocketed by several times. Traces of cracks even appeared on the ground. Chapter 641. Phoenix Blood Essence Boom. The firebird feather finally disintegrated, leaving behind a drop of golden liquid. However, the moment this drop of golden liquid appeared, an extremely terrifying pressure was released from the liquid without any warning. A clear cry rang out. Following that, Zhuowen was shocked to discover that above the liquid, a shadow that was born from fire spread its wings and flew towards the sky. The divine beast phoenix, Nirvana Rebirth. This shadow was actually a phoenix. The terrifying pressure from its body poured down. Zhuowen couldn't help but let out a groan as he slowly retreated a dozen steps. Instead of being shocked, his eyes were filled with joy. It is said that the firebird possesses the phoenix bloodline of the ancient divine beast. Could this drop of golden liquid be the phoenix blood? Looking at the golden liquid that was quietly floating in the air, Zhuowen's smile widened. No wonder the nirvana of the great sun in his body had such a huge reaction. It turned out that this firebird feather actually contained a drop of phoenix blood essence. Although it was only a drop, the phoenix was an ancient divine beast. It was an existence that surpassed all living creatures. Even within the dragon clan, only the top dragon clan could be compared to the phoenix. It was an existence that truly stood at the peak. One could imagine how rare a drop of phoenix blood essence was. Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen forcefully suppressed the excitement in his heart. With a stroke of his right hand, he carefully stored the drop of phoenix blood essence into his spirit ring. The phoenix blood essence should be extremely beneficial to Zhuowen's nirvana of the great sun. However, he also knew that it wasn't easy to absorb this drop of phoenix blood essence. This place was the appraisal hall, not a safe place. Zhuowen didn't plan to absorb the phoenix blood essence here. Furthermore, Zhuowen didn't know if absorbing the phoenix blood essence would have any side effects. Therefore, Zhuowen wouldn't do it so easily. It would be great if Xiaohei woke up now. With that fellow's knowledge, he should know how to use this drop of phoenix blood essence. At this moment, Zhuowen missed the days when Xiaohei was still around. Xiaohei's knowledge was much more than his. She would definitely know how to use this drop of phoenix blood essence. Let's put the phoenix blood essence aside for now. There's still more than 2 days left. I can use the spirit stones to increase my mental strength. Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen's gaze fell on the spirit stones in the spirit ring. Because he had bought the firebird plume feather and the greater infinite sword formation, Zhuowen only had about 8,000 spirit stones left. However, they were all mid-grade spirit stones, and the spirit chi they contained was much denser than low-grade spirit stones. Spiritual chi was extremely beneficial to the growth of mental strength. 8,000 medium spiritual stones were enough to allow Zhuowen's mental strength to reach the level of complete grade 4. Once Zhuowen's mental power reaches the 4th grade great perfection, coupled with the ultimate sword formation, even if the outside world's master Yanhua was waiting for him, Zhuowen would not be afraid. Thinking of this, Zhuowen waved his right hand. Suddenly, pieces of sparkling and translucent spirit stones piled up in front of him, almost forming a small mountain. A fierce spirit chi rushed towards him. Boom! With a thought, the mental strength in Zhuowen's Naiwen Palace swept out like a hurricane, enveloping all the spirit stones in front of him. Waves of dense spirit chi followed this mental strength and endlessly drilled into the space between Zhuowen's eyebrows. Following the influx of spirit energy, Zhuowen could clearly feel the mental energy contained in his Naiwen Palace. Just like a healthy baby, it was continuously growing stronger and more solid. Time gradually passed. Outside the entrance of the inspection treasure hall, Master Yanhua, Feng Xiang, and the other 3 people were still waiting. However, the 4 of them did not look too good. Almost 3 days had passed, but Zhuowen still had not come out. Looks like this little bastard is afraid of you, Master Yanhua. It has almost been 3 days, but this kid still hasn't come out. I'm afraid he doesn't plan to come out. Feng Xiang's eyebrows furrowed slightly. His expression was somewhat irritated. The reason why he had followed behind Grandmaster Yanhua was because he wanted to see Zhuowen get beaten up by Grandmaster Yanhua. If Zhuowen did not come out, wouldn't his waiting be in vain? Didn't you say that this kid is a genius from Muqing County? Since he came to the imperial capital this time, he probably wants to participate in the upcoming War of the 9 Counties. There is less than a month left until the War of the 9 Counties. If this kid doesn't want to miss it, he will definitely come out within a month. At that time, I will have the opportunity to capture him. After saying this, the corners of Master Yanhua's mouth curled up. His gaze became gloomy and cruel. He was very patient and could continue waiting. However, Zhuowen did not have that much time. Yes, that's true. The War of the 9 Counties is about to begin. This kid will not give up this opportunity. He will definitely come out within a month. Feng Xiang nodded in agreement. Senior Huangfu, I'm afraid that Zhuowen is afraid. Almost 3 days have passed. This kid simply doesn't have the guts to face Grandmaster Yanhua and the others. Jing Yun stood beside Huangfu Zixia, and the corners of her mouth curled into a sneer as she spoke. Yes, 3 level 4 Arcana Masters and Feng Xiang. That Zhuowen won't have the slightest chance of escaping from such a lineup. It's reasonable that he doesn't come out. Huangfu Zixia nodded. Her voice was extremely cold from beginning to end. Boom! In a room in the inspection hall, a terrifying mind energy overflowed, causing the surrounding air to freeze. This mind energy had the momentum to soar into the sky. It was vast and unrestrained. It was as vast as an abyss. When this terrifying mind energy reached a critical point, a muffled sound suddenly burst out. Zhuowen's aura reached its peak. The mind energy around him converged like a tide, and everything returned to normal. Crack! At the same time, the small mountain of spiritual stones piled in front of Zhuowen turned into ordinary stones. Inch by inch, they crumbled into fine powder. Just like that, 8,000 medium spiritual stones turned into useless fine powder. My complete fourth-grade mind energy has finally reached it. At this moment, Zhuowen slowly stood up. His eyes were as dazzling as the blazing sun. The spiritual energy of 8,000 medium spiritual stones had finally pushed his mind energy to the complete fourth grade. This time, Zhuowen could rely on the spiritual energy of the medium spiritual stones to break through to the complete fourth grade in one fell swoop. The main reason was that his realm had already reached the complete fourth grade, but his mind energy had yet to reach the complete fourth grade. Zhuowen's mind energy had reached the complete fourth grade for some time. Moreover, he cultivated the myriad evolution scripture, a top-grade secret spirit skill. The cultivation speed of his mind energy was much faster than that of ordinary arcana masters. It was not surprising that his realm had reached the complete fourth grade long ago. Now, with the help of the medium spiritual stones, it was reasonable for his mind energy to reach the complete fourth grade. Ding, ding, ding. The crisp sound of swords suddenly rang out. The fusion of the ultimate sword formation and the ultimate sword aura, which were suspended in mid-air, had finally reached the final moment. When the sound of the swords reached the highest pitch, the ultimate sword formation and the ultimate sword aura finally merged completely. A shocking aura suddenly burst out. Boom! The entire room shook a few times, and Zhuowen retreated continuously under this aura. In the end, he used the nirvana of the great sun to barely stabilize his body. As expected of a fifth-grade origin formation, just this aura alone is enough to make me retreat. Looking at the complete ultimate sword formation in front of him, Zhuowen's eyes were full of excitement. This ultimate sword formation was extremely extraordinary. It was probably a powerful existence among the fifth-grade origin formations. A man's wealth is his own ruin. This complete ultimate sword formation cannot be easily shown to others. Looking at the extremely extraordinary ultimate sword formation in front of him, Zhuowen's eyes flickered. If the ultimate sword formation was incomplete, it would be useless to a fifth-grade arcana master. It would only be of great help to a fourth-grade arcana master. If people were to know that Zhuowen possessed the complete greater infinity sword array, perhaps the rank 5 arcanists of the Arcane Guild would become restless. There was no guarantee that they wouldn't try to steal it from him. In the future, I will use the incomplete ultimate sword formation. Unless it is absolutely necessary, I will not use the complete ultimate sword formation. With a wave of his right hand, the ultimate sword formation in front of Zhuowen immediately, obediently came to Zhuowen. With Zhuowen as the center, it slowly rotated with a cold light. At the same time, Zhuowen's right hand formed a claw and fiercely grabbed the ultimate sword aura. Instantly, the sound of a sword rang out, and the ultimate sword aura was caught by Zhuowen. The ultimate sword formation once again became incomplete, and its aura was much weaker than before. Since the limitless sword aura had already perfectly merged with the greater limitless sword formation, if Zhuowen wanted to use the limitless sword aura to form the greater limitless sword formation, it wouldn't be as troublesome as today. It would take a long time to form the complete greater limitless sword formation in an instant. Collect! With a grab of his right hand, the long swords in the ultimate sword formation were all collected into Zhuowen's spiritual ring like flowing light. When he was refining the ultimate sword formation, Zhuowen naturally discovered that there were 5 great sword moves in the ultimate sword formation. Moreover, the power of these 5 great sword moves was even more terrifying than the sword moves in the ultimate sword aura. The 5 great sword moves were the blood-weeping style, the yin-yang style, the sky-breaking style, the thousand sword style, and the flowing sword style. Each move was more terrifying than the previous one. Of course, it was also more difficult to master each move. Now that Zhuowen had just obtained the ultimate sword formation, it was naturally impossible for him to master these 5 great sword moves. He only knew how to use them crudely. However, even with the crudely used method, the power he could unleash was still very terrifying. It should be time to leave the appraisal pavilion. I wonder if Grandmaster Yinhua and the others are still waiting outside. After putting away the ultimate sword formation, Zhuowen thought of the ruthless words that Grandmaster Yinhua had said 3 days ago. His eyes narrowed as a cold light flashed in them. If it was 3 days ago, Zhuowen might have been afraid of Grandmaster Yinhua. But now, Zhuowen's mental energy had broken through to the rank 4 great perfection, and he had mastered the ultimate sword formation. Even if he could not defeat Grandmaster Yinhua, it was more than enough for him to escape from Grandmaster Yinhua and the other two. Thinking of this, Zhuowen took a step forward and walked towards the entrance of the appraisal pavilion. At this moment, there were still many people gathered at the entrance. Grandmaster Yinhua, Feng Xiang, and the other 3 stood in the middle of the entrance. Their eyes were fixed on the entrance of the appraisal pavilion. The surrounding people were also looking at the entrance. Ding, ding, ding. Chapter 642. Severed arm, following which, a slender young man carrying a green coffin appeared before everyone's eyes. This young man was Zhuowen. This person is Guts. He knows that Master Yinhua is waiting at the entrance, yet he still dares to come out. He must be tired of living. Maybe he has some tricks up his sleeve and thinks that he can escape from Master Yinhua. That's why he's so confident. When Zhuowen finally arrived at the entrance of the inspection treasure pavilion, the surrounding crowd burst into an uproar. Many people even looked at Zhuowen as if they were looking at a fool. This person knows that there are tigers in the mountain, yet he still dares to go there. They don't know if they should call him courageous or stupid. Grandmaster Yinhua narrowed his eyes and stared at Zhuowen. A cruel smile appeared on his face as he said, "I didn't expect you to be so courageous. You actually dare to come out. I can't help but admire your courage." Hee hee. Zhuowen, I'll give you a chance to live. Hand over your spiritual ring, sever your arms, cripple your cultivation, and kneel before me. Perhaps I'll plead with Master Yinhua to spare your worthless life. Feng Xiang stared at Zhuowen with hatred. One idiot. Cripple your cultivation and sever your own arms. I'm afraid that only an idiot like you can think of such a stupid method. Do you really think that you can take revenge just because you're related to Master Yinhua? What a laughable idiot. Zhuowen glanced at Feng Xiang as if he was looking at a clown. He shook his head and ignored Feng Xiang. Instead, he looked at Master Yinhua and the other 2 who were not far away. This was especially true for Master Yinhua. Although Master Yinhua's mental strength was the same as his, the black flames that he released last time were extremely terrifying. Master Yinhua had used some kind of secret technique to turn his mental strength into black flames. In Zhuowen's opinion, Grandmaster Pyrotechnic was much more difficult to deal with than an ordinary grade 4 Great Perfection Arcana Master. Therefore, even Zhuowen would not be careless. Zhuowen's disregard immediately caused Feng Xiang's expression to turn ugly as he flew into a rage. However, he did not dare to step forward and teach Zhuowen a lesson. After experiencing Zhuowen's strength, he clearly understood that he was no match for Zhuowen and would only be beaten up if he stepped forward. Grandmaster Yinhua glanced at Feng Xiang and snorted coldly at Zhuowen. I gave you a chance in the appraiser hall. Unfortunately, you didn't cherish it. So, you won't have the chance to live today. You didn't give me the opportunity. I created it myself. Don't put yourself on a pedestal as if everything is in your hands. You don't know that in my eyes, you are no different from a monkey performing on the street. Zhuowen sneered. I think you are courting death. Li Long, Li Hu, kill this arrogant brat on the spot and take the spiritual ring from this little bastard. Grandmaster Yinhua's expression was gloomy as he snorted coldly. Yes. Li Long and Li Hu both responded. Instantly, 2 terrifying mental energies burst out from their bodies. At the same time, the 2 of them took out a roulette at the same time. Grade 4 Origin Array, Polar Domain. Grade 4 Origin Array, Lava Domain. The 2 of them shouted at the same time. Instantly, the 2 roulette in their hands flew out. One of the roulette exploded and countless icy chi gushed out, turning into a frost domain that was dozens of feet wide. The other roulette exploded and countless hot magma gushed out, spreading dozens of feet wide. The polar domain enveloped Zhuo from above, while the lava domain corroded the soles of Zhuo's feet from below. They were actually planning to seal Zhuo in between the two domains. The moment the extreme cold and extreme heat energy came into contact, a terrifying explosive energy was formed. Without a doubt, if Zhuo was completely trapped in these two domains, he would definitely die. Boom! In an instant, the two domains closed and Zhuo's figure was completely engulfed by the two domains, disappearing from sight. Hee hee, arrogant little bastard. Do you really think that you are invincible? You deserve to die now. Feng Xiang's eyes revealed a trace of satisfaction as he grinned. Grandmaster Yinhua narrowed his eyes. He could faintly feel that Zhuo was not that simple. However, he did not expect that he would be trapped by Li Long and Li Hu's origin array. The polar domain and the lava domain were both grade 4 origin arrays. The combination of the two could unleash an extremely terrifying power. Once one was trapped within it, only death awaited them. Even Grandmaster Yinhua would have to put in a lot of effort to escape from it if he was trapped within it. The instant Zhuo's figure was engulfed, the surrounding people revealed a disappointed expression. They originally thought that the young man who dared to talk back to Grandmaster Yinhua would be a powerful expert. They did not expect him to be so useless. Overestimating himself. In the crowd, Jingyan narrowed her eyes and sneered. On the other hand, Huangfu Zixia's beautiful face was still indifferent. Even when Zhuo was trapped in the polar domain and lava domain, she was still not moved in the slightest. She only thought that Zhuo was a boorish fellow who did not know when to stop. He is indeed a piece of trash. He actually dared to defy Grandmaster Yinhua's orders. He deserves to die. Li Long and Li Hu looked at each other as they sneered. However, a clear voice rang out, causing the sneers on Li Long and Li Hu's faces to gradually freeze. Don't you find it laughable to play with fire and ice in front of me? Boom! The moment these words left his mouth, the polar domain and the lava domain, which were originally showing signs of merging, suddenly burst apart. A figure slowly walked out. What caused everyone to be shocked was that wherever this person passed, the polar domain and the lava domain seemed to kneel on the ground as though they were worshipping their king. When Li Long and Li Hu saw this scene, their brows slightly furrowed. However, their hearts were filled with shock. They tried their best to activate their respective yuan arrays, but there was no reaction at all. You want to withdraw these 2 yuan arrays? Since you want them, I'll give them to you. Zhuo sneered as he waved his hands. Instantly, the 2 domains that were wrapped in a terrifying might suddenly flew towards Li Long and Li Hu. The speed was so fast that even the 2 of them were caught off guard. Boom! A huge explosion accompanied by shrill screams rang out. The terrifying explosion formed by the combination of the 2 domains of ice and fire directly engulfed Li Long and Li Hu. In the time of 2 breaths, the screams weakened. In the end, there was no sign of life. Li Long and Li Hu had died under the explosion. Hiss! Gasps could be heard from the surroundings. The young man in front of them had hidden his strength well. His strength was actually so terrifying. From the time Zhuo escaped to the death of Li Long and Li Hu, it was only a blink of an eye. It was so fast that even Master Yinhua couldn't react in time. Then they were killed by Zhuo just like that. Feng Xiang's face was a little stiff. Although Li Long and Li Hu were only grade 4 lower-tier arcanists and were much weaker than Master Yinhua, Feng Xiang might not be a match for the 2 of them when they joined forces. However, Zhuo had killed the 2 of them so easily. Feng Xiang faintly felt a little uneasy in his heart. You killed them. Master Yinhua's pupil shrank as he said word by word in a suppressed voice. Oh, are your dog eyes blind? Did you turn a blind eye to the scene just now? Zhuo grinned and revealed a cold smile. How dare you kill the people of my arcane guild? You must die. Master Yinhua flew into a rage. Li Long and Li, who were his right-hand men, and were also his confidants. They were completely loyal to him. Now that they were killed by Zhuo, how could Master Yinhua not be furious? Die? The one who died wasn't me, but you. Zhuo said sarcastically. Boom! Grandmaster Yinhua let out a low roar. His terrifying mental energy spread out and turned into strange black flames in the surroundings. Countless black flames circled around, and the surrounding temperature soared to the extreme. This caused the surrounding crowd to involuntarily retreat. "You will pay the price for what you've done. Die." With a low roar, Master Yinhua's right hand formed into a claw and pressed down on the void. The countless black flames around him condensed into a huge black flame claw and crushed down on Zhuowen. Zhuowen snorted coldly. With a shake of his sleeve, a dazzling golden light filled the surface of his body. Zhuowen bent down and took a step forward. His right fist, which was ready to strike, punched out and the golden light exploded. Nirvana of the great sun! Nirvana! With a low roar, the golden light from his right fist soared into the sky, almost piercing through the sky. A terrifying golden giant that was close to 1,000 feet tall suddenly stepped out from the depths of the void. It stepped on the golden flames and slammed its huge palm against the black flame claw. Boom! 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 The golden light and the black flame clashed and burst out layers of airwaves, causing the surrounding space to collapse inch by inch. A terrifying explosion sounded, and the golden light and black flame disappeared into the void at the same time. This kid is terrifying. He actually managed to block Master Yinhua's black flame claw. Master Yinhua used a secret technique to transform his mental strength into black flames. Its might is even above ordinary earth flames. Even an early-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator might not be able to block it. After Grandmaster Yinhua's black flame claw was broken, the surrounding uproar became even noisier. Everyone knew that the reason why this young man, who was carrying a green coffin, dared to act so arrogantly in the inspection treasure hall and did not give Grandmaster Yinhua any face was not because he was arrogant. Instead, it was because he had the confidence to do so. Master Yinhua's face was extremely gloomy, but his heart was also in turmoil. Even he didn't expect Zhuowen to be able to break his black flame claw. Whoosh! Zhuowen slowly walked over. With a clench of his right hand, a bone spear that was 3 feet long appeared in his palm. Following that, Zhuowen took a step forward and charged towards Master Yinhua without slowing down. The contempt in Master Yinhua's eyes disappeared. This Zhuowen was enough for him to take him seriously. Therefore, when Zhuowen charged over, he immediately controlled the black flame around him and formed a thick and terrifying wall of fire around him. Whoosh! In an instant, Zhuowen was like a fluttering butterfly as he flew over. When Zhuowen was only 5 meters away from Grandmaster Yinhua, the gazes of the surrounding people were gathered at this place. They wanted to see exactly what would happen when the two of them collided. "Idiot!" A mocking voice slowly sounded in Master Yinhua's ears. Following that, Zhuowen turned his spear around in disbelief and charged towards Fengxiang. Pucci, you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.